This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome again, everyone. My name's Dylan from Swala Kalahari Reserve. I've got something fascinating to show you on our first part of the drive this afternoon. It's a praying mantis. Really cool. Welcome to Wild Earth and Safari Live. Welcome back to Swala Kalahari. I was waiting for this the whole afternoon. Old Jandre on camera as always, and my name's Dylan, and it is amazing to have you all with us. I'm super excited. I'm sitting on the sand. We stopped on this dune crest to just kind of like do our little opening thing here, and it's really pretty. And as we stopped, there's a praying mantis, and there he goes walking there. Look at that. So this is it's called a common green mantid, but I think there's something wrong with him because he's not walking so well. It's called the common green mantid. It's the largest one that we actually have in South Africa. And I'm really interested, I'll tell you a little bit about him now, but I'm really interested in terms of his behavior, because normally at this time of the day, they're going to be stuck up in a bush somewhere, very, very well camouflaged. And so he's sitting out in the open sand. Now, one of the things over here apart from him, there's a whole lot of things that'll eat them, but one of the big predators that I've seen in this Kalahari environment on these praying mantids are ant-eating chats, southern ant-eating chats. Now, we've seen them a couple of times on a number of the drives. It's those ones that frequently follow the aardvark and the pangolins when they're digging. And I've seen them taking out praying mantises on a regular basis. And I guess, these guys fly very, very well. So they've obviously got to get from, bush to bush and that. And that's when they'll be exposed. On a situation like this, out in an open sand dune, that's exactly what's going to happen. Anyway, hopefully not while we're sitting right here. One of the really interesting features, I'm just trying to keep my shadow off in there. One of the interesting things about these little guys, there's a whole lot of interesting things. They have got remarkably good eyesight. And this little one is actually watching me now. And I'm going to move my hand around him, and you'll actually see, I don't know how well you can see his head moving there, but you're going to watch his head moving. Or not. There we go. Look, and I'll bring it back this way. No. But their eyesight is excellent. Their eyesight is very, very good. And these particular ones, it's the largest one we get in Southern Africa. We get a whole range of other little ones. If I find one, they are ridiculously well camouflaged, but we'll keep looking. But some of them are very, very small. These ones prey primarily on caterpillars. Now, again, we've been chatting about like the armored ground crickets, how as we're going into winter, they're kind of dying off. And remember, they're omnivores, so they'll go for carrion, they'll go for a lot of plant matter, they'll even eat each other if they get squished in that. But as a caterpillar specialist, and I mean, they'll feed on other things. I've seen them eating moths and that, but as primarily being a caterpillar specialist, this is a really, did some backward rolls there. This is a really bad time of year for these guys to be out. So I'd imagine they're also kind of like reaching the end of their tether. But what an amazing animal, eh? And I'm going to, I'll just put my hand there just to give you an idea of the size. There's like bugs in my mouth here. There you can see, relative to my hand, the size of that praying mantis. So he's probably kind of like 50 millimeters long, give or take, roughly. But what an awesome, awesome, awesome animal. And they actually depict, not on Swalu, but in Southern African rock art, there are actually depictions of praying mantids, which is interesting. They were regarded as the trickster deity in Southern African rock art. So we're going to just spend a little bit of time with this and just see what he does. And then we'll move on from there.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to and Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Jared Dupree, and we've got Marcel behind the camera with you today. And what a great treat to start off a wonderful afternoon here at Mantid with an animal we do not see too often, a black rhino, and a very relaxed and sleepy black rhino. It is the same one that we managed to find. Very fortunate to find him again. It was in a very similar area to where we are here, and you can see next to where this male is, we've got a little bit of water and some mud. And I'm pretty sure the reason why he's in this particular area is that there's lots of trees around here that is perfect for him to browse with. Black rhinos on. And today is a slightly warmer day than the last couple of days that we've had. And maybe he was thinking, if it warms up, I'm going to climb into this water hole to cool down. So he's an older male. We do recognize him. He's one of the older males that we've got on the reserves. We estimate him to be in his late 20s. So or could be than that. So he's sort of towards the end of his lifespan, but he's done a good job. You'll notice that his condition is starting to drop with age, which is what is expected of an older. Unfortunately, as they start to get older, their teeth start into the elephants, and they just do not feed as well. And you can sort of see that his condition isn't in pristine, looking good. He does have a couple of wounds. So the wound that is behind his front right shoulder is actually not from fighting. That is from a parasite, and the exact same parasite that you will see with giraffe, where you've seen the wounds on the giraffe neck. Some it is from the exact same parasite that lay their larva in the skin of black rhino, and that wound starts to irritate him, and so he will rub it and scratch it vigorously against branches, and that's why it looks so open. He doesn't have any ox pickers on him at the moment, but if he did have some, they would probably be picular area. And then if you look just below his wound, you'll notice lots and lots of little ticks. And those ticks are attached to what looks like another wound as well. So it's quite usual when rhinos have wounds that those are the areas where ticks will attach themselves. And then if we move towards his face, you'll see that he has quite his eye, that scar, not a very fresh wound, but probably from fight, I think, but he's got a slightly fresher wound there, and that is from all
the feed. We just had some problems on the other side there, so I just picked this little guy up to see if there's any obvious signs of any problems with him, and I can't. He's actually just sitting grooming himself on my hand. I guess I don't blame him. It's like but yeah, he's super relaxed, but I'm going to bring him a little bit closer. You might be able to get a really good idea of him grooming himself there. Nope. Sunak has asked, what do they hunt? He's right behind me now. I'm going to try to turn around slowly. What do they hunt on Swallow? These little praying mantises, these particular ones, I'm just turning around slowly, are predators on caterpillars. They'll eat other things as well, but caterpillars is their primary diet. It's not impossible. I don't know if you can even see this thing because I can't. Okay. It's not impossible that they will eat scorpions, but it's very, very unlikely. We do get scorpions that live on the bark of these trees. And, you know, if you got a praying mantis up on the bark of a tree and there's a tiny little scorpion there, you could, but I think it would be very unlikely, you know, with scorpions being super good predators themselves, you know, it probably wouldn't end well for one of them. Hello, little man. There you are. Did you enjoy that? Did you guys see where Gendre was, what he was up to? But I'm going to walk up to this bush now, and I'm going to get him onto the bush there, where he's out of sight of birds. Hey, did you see him fly? How awesome is that? So there's actually doesn't seem to be anything wrong with him. You know, I did a quick veterinary check on him. All his vital signs were good. Heart rate was fine. Breathing was good. Yeah. All his appendages. There's no appendages that have been bitten. So he seems good. But yeah, we'll just leave him. And it's just, I'm really interested as to why he was out at this time of day. And also, I'm not saying they won't occur on these bushes. It's just, you can see that little insect actually sticks out quite well on a bush like this, which is not ideal. Oh, here's a hoverfly. Sorry, can you get on this one, Gendre? It's a crazy creature. He's just gone. Wait, he might come back. Sorry, that was super. It was just the coolest kind of hoverfly, which are very important pollinators. So back to the praying mantis, I was just saying that, it's this kind of bush is really not good for him for camouflaging himself. These kind of bushes here are far, far, far better for them. They'll blend in a whole lot better. The color matches him better. You've got slightly broader leaves, that kind of thing. So that's the other thing with camouflage is, just because an animal's well camouflaged, it doesn't mean they're going to be in the perfect or on the perfect substrate the entire time. I mean, these things happen, and, you can get a praying mantis that just gets caught out in the open. But yeah, this is what I love. You come out here, you see there's a praying mantis, then there's a hoverfly. There's just so many cool things going on at the same time. And you never know what you're going to find, eh? It's all good. Oh yeah, I was quite interested in where his tracks were. Here are his tracks over here, and this is. I remember you saw him flying off my arm down onto that bush over here. I don't know, Gendre, if you're gonna be able to get this. It's quite difficult, yeah. But this little guy didn't walk to where we got him. He landed over here somehow. And then this is where we saw him sitting for the first time. So he landed over here and then moved up like this. So Rosalind has asked the dead obvious question that I should have actually mentioned from the get-go, and I didn't. So thanks for that, Rosalind. Rosalind has asked why they called a praying mantis. So they've got a habit, and you didn't see it so nicely on this one here with the posture, is they actually sit with their four legs. Oh, they've got 6 legs. That was weak. But they're 2 long front legs. They sit with them out like this, and it almost looks like they're praying. That's where the name praying mantis comes from. Yeah, so he obviously didn't walk across sand. He flew from there, landed over here, and then he moved up this way, ding, 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 like that. It's just really interesting that he was out there. And for those of you cynics amongst us, we didn't put him there, I promise. Sometimes we're just lucky. Yeah, we're going to head on down this road. We're going to start cutting west from here. And hopefully find something else. We've got no plan, but let's head on and see what we can get.
Welcome back, everyone, and I do apologize for the loss in feed earlier. We are in an area where the signal is low, so I'm hoping that it's going to stay. So he has just rolled over now. He hasn't done much else but roll over. And I'm just having a look at his back, and you'll notice that there are quite a few scratches on his back. And those marks that you see on his back do look far worse than what they are. So what has happened there is that this bull, over the last couple of days, a little while, has been rolling around in mud and sand, and so his skin is sort of layered with that sand or mud. And then as he walks through the bushes, with black rhinos being browsers, they do tend to walk through very thick areas, and a lot of the areas that they walk through have quite a lot of thorns, and those are the branches and thorns scraping down his body. So he does look far worse for wear than what he actually is. That being said, he does obviously have quite a few deeper wounds. You'll see the darker scratch marks down his body, the ones that are more black in color. And those are probably from years and years of fighting with different black rhino bulls within this area. Now, black rhinos and white rhinos, you very seldom, if ever, will see them fighting. Because they're two different species, they do not compete for mating, and they also don't compete for the same sort of food. So black rhinos eat branches and leaves, white rhinos eat grass. So for most parts, black rhinos will leave white rhinos alone. I have in fact seen interaction between black rhinos and white rhinos, and it was very passive. It was more curiosity, coming over, having a look, and then moving on. So Ruby, we will dehorn a rhino on average every 2.5, 3 years. Their horn does grow extremely quickly, like our fingernails, and they will continue on growing until the day they die. And so we want to just make sure that when we trim the horn, we keep it at a length that is at a value that a poacher would never want to come onto the reserve and poach for. And so it's about 2.5, 3 years. So I do imagine this bull will probably be trimmed soon. That being said, he is an older bull, and like I said, probably closer to around 30 years old. And judging by his lack of movement over the last couple of days, I do start to worry that this bull is towards the end of his lifespan. And if we do deem him to be sort of towards the end of his life, we wouldn't dart him to remove his horn, because that would add, although there is very little stress in removing the horn, it would add, we wouldn't want to add any unnecessary stress to an older male like this. So I'm not sure exactly where we cut off last time. We were talking about some of the wounds on the male, and you'll see around his face he's also got quite a few different wounds from fighting. So Jane, older bulls do not hold territories into their when they become old, like this male over here. So this male, he for the last 10 years or so, he's been dominant in the central part of our reserve, in an area where we call Bombeni. And just recently we've noticed that he is moving more and more south to where he is now. And the area where we're seeing him now is an area that we haven't really seen him much in the past. So I think he's being kicked out of that particular territory, which he had held for quite a few years. And now he's trying his best to just avoid any confrontation with any other males, and will keep on moving until he gets into an area where maybe there's some younger bulls that aren't going to challenge him, or maybe just no territorial bulls. We do have a fairly big reserve, and although we have a very healthy population of black rhinos, they don't cover every part of the reserve. So I'm sure that if this male keeps on moving, he will be able to find an area that's got good browsing, lots of water, and no males that are going to compete with him. He just looks so peaceful. And this is so special. He's one of the few males on the reserve that is actually this relaxed. So Jim, both black and white rhinos don't have a mating season. So the males will court the females any time of the year. The gestation period between the gestation period of the females around 450 days of a black rhino, and then she will hold her calf for maybe about 2 to 3 years. In that time, she will kick her calf out, and then she would have mated with the male just before she kicks the calf out. Now, let's say she loses her calf for whatever the reason might be. Maybe it gets predated on by lions, which doesn't happen very often, or the calf gets sick and dies. She'll go straight back into estrus again. So generally the calving interval's around 3 years or so. But if she does lose her calf at a younger age, or if she does lose her calf, she will then go back into estrus shortly. That maternal instinct will kick in. And she'll walk around, release in her urine some of those pheromones that would attract the males to know that she's in estrus, and they would therefore track her down. There's actually very few animals out here that do have breeding seasons. What we find is that it is mainly the grazing animals. So animals that rely heavily on grass for their source of nutrients, and they want to try give birth around the rainy season. And the reason for that is that when they have their calves, they want their milk to be as rich and nutritious as possible. And so they want to drop their lambs or their calves around that period of time. For the rest of the animals, most of the carnivores don't have a breeding season. Elephants, giraffe, both species of rhinos, hippos do not have a breeding season. All right, so I think we're going to leave this male. He's sitting here nice and peacefully. I think we're going to carry on to see what else we can find. I believe there is a hippo waiting for you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Special welcome to all the kids watching, and welcome to the Sunset Safari here at and Beyond Ngala. You can see we've decided to come out to this waterhole. This is Clara Dam. You've been here a number of times before, and we're just seeing what's around. You'll be doing this wonderful drive with myself, Sean, and we've got the Odie behind the camera. There's his finger. We just thought it was hot weather. We're going to see what came down to the waterhole now for a drink. Seems nothing. Maybe it's still a bit too hot. We did see some zebras on our way here that seemed to be doing the exact same thing. They were heading straight towards this waterhole. There were two little ones in there, but they went into the bushes. I think they're taking a shortcut, cutting across. So we're going to wait here patiently. You'll start to find now, after the heat of the day, as it's cooling down a little bit, things like the zebra, the wildebeest, the giraffe, the impalas should be coming down for their final drink of the day before heading off to a place to sleep. Now you can see where we're looking at there, those two hippos. So they're here. One of them was actually quite far out the water when we arrived. I think got a bit hot, the sun got a bit too strong. Oh look, you see that? That's a leg. The hippo is rolling over. It's like he's trying to coat his body with some mud. And there was a leg that you saw flailing in the air there. But although you can't see a lot, I must say, in the waterhole like this, there is a lot of life. There are fish, there are terrapins. So terrapins are freshwater turtles. In fact, I can see a few here close to us. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Eddie's going to see if we can find them. They're quite hard to actually see. You just generally see the little black dot of the head there. Just under, there's another one further back there, Eddie. These are little terrapins. Now, they look small and they do look quite cute, but they're actually quite aggressive. They will often hunt small little birds that come to drink on the side of the waterholes. They'll go underwater like a crocodile and sort of come up and grab one of the little birds that is drinking. So there you can see a shell behind them. They're quite a long animal, in fact. And they often, you know, if something comes into the water, they might bite the ticks off something like a buffalo. So we got a question from Sophia, our first question of the day. Sophia wants to know how big a hippo can get. So Sophia, you saw the rhinos at Pinda, and the hippo is roughly the same size. Roughly the same size. Obviously doesn't have the big horn, Sophia, but it's about the same size as the rhinos. But very unlikely, Sophia, to see them out of the water. I mean, in my whole life, I've maybe seen 5 hippos out of the water. So you've got to be quite lucky, at least here at and Beyond Ngala, to do that. If you go to, you know, a place like Botswana, you'll have a much higher chance. But you can see there, Odie is shining on the zebras. So they have finally come. Those are the ones that I told you about. So what we're going to do, we're just going to move about 5 meters, maybe a bit more than that, about 10 meters, to see if we can get a better angle from the side of the waterhole. So just bear with us for 20 seconds as we just move the car. So you'll see, this is the herd I was talking about, because they've got the 2 small little babies. Now these are very young zebras. They're still very fluffy. So if we go just over here, Odie, you can get that. And you'll be able to see all of our zebras. So that's what I was saying, you know, now that it's cooling down, these animals are coming down to the water. You can see one little one on the far right-hand side of the herd. It's a little bit younger, and there pops out the other one on the left. Well, third from the left. As you see, quite nervous. So this is the safest time for these sort of prey species to drink. So we know in weather like this, so hot, that all the predators, your lions, your leopards, your wild dogs, your cheetahs, they are most likely sleeping. They are resting in the shade. It's just too hot for them to do anything. And these prey animals, zebras, impalas, wildebeest, they know that. They're like, okay, now's our time to come and drink. So the little one on the left there, most likely not drinking, because maybe it's too nervous. It's just a little bit scared. You can see it keeps turning around. It keeps looking back up the bank onto the grass. Maybe it's just a little bit on edge. Now, I'm sure it will definitely come and have a drink. There, he's slowly coming towards the water. But a waterhole's a scary place. You know, firstly, there could be a crocodile. There's no crocodiles in this waterhole. In the other waterhole we do have, but here we don't. But they got to worry about potential crocodiles in the water. Their heads are down. They're making a noise, so they can't hear very well. They can't see very well because they're just looking straight down at the water. Their sense of smell, their nose is very, very close to the water. So all of their senses that they use are sort of, distracted at the moment. And so it's a very vulnerable time for the animals. Not just zebra. Giraffe also, you know, they got to bend down. Bend down so far, it's quite an awkward position for them. It makes them very, 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 very vulnerable to attack. That's why you'll see these animals come down, hottest time of the day where everything else is sleeping, have a quick drink, and then they're out of here again. That little one did not drink very much, but they might have come down a little bit earlier. Maybe they come down 2-3 times a day, have a drink, leave. Okay, so Space Bunny wants to know sort of how a zebra calf is protected. Is it protected solely by the mother or by the whole herd? So Space Bunny, its mother will obviously protect it, but also the stallion. So with zebras like that, there's a harem. So there's a number of females, and then there is a male that sort of controls, for want of a better word, the entire, all of the females in his group, Space Bunny. So that stallion will defend the whole herd. So if something comes, he might try and chase it away, and that would then protect the calf. If that calf's mother dies, Space Bunny, it depends on how old the calf is. If the calf is old enough that it doesn't need any milk, it doesn't need to suckle, anything like that, then it will be protected in the herd, because it will stay alive on its own means, and the stallion will still protect the herd which the calf is in. If it needs to suckle, as far as I know, I have not heard of another zebra adopting another calf, so then most likely that calf would die because no one's going to give it milk. Not that I've heard, at least. You know, there might be some situations, I'm sure there are some situations where zebras have adopted other calves, but not here on Ngala, Space Bunny. So most likely if the mother dies and the calf is suckling, it will die. If it's past the suckling stage, it's been weaned off already, then very good chance that the calf will survive and it will be perfectly fine. You know, because the male will still protect the whole herd. And duck my head there so you can see the hippos. But otherwise, out here, just a very peaceful spot on the reserve. Very peaceful time of the day. There's also, today is awesome because there's no wind, there's no breeze. It's just a still, calm calm day. But what our plan is, so we're going to sit here for maybe a little bit longer, see if anything else comes down. I was hoping for some giraffe. And then the tracking teams. Some of the tracking teams were out this morning, Shane. They walked far. They walked about 12 kilometers trying to track down the lions for us this morning. So maybe we'll hang around here for a bit and then see what happens. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is send you off to the very dry Kalahari.
So we're just ambling around here, and I've just found yes, I love these insects and arthropods and stuff and bugs, and this is just a bomb. I actually, like, my heart skipped a beat there for a moment, because as we were driving, I saw this shiny thing lying on the ground there. I thought, oh no, don't tell me that's like some weird piece of plastic or something that's ended up here somehow. But anyway, walking closer, I find it is anything but plastic. Oh, this is just stunning. This is absolutely... I'm going to try, Jean-Andre, which side are you on me for the light? That side. This side. This is drop dead gorgeous. Look at that. Can you see it there? This is a millipede. Look at that. It's dead. Obviously it's dead. Just if anyone's wondering. But it has been perfectly preserved. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. In Afrikaans, okay, let me, geez, I don't know what's going to work best there for you. You happy? I don't know what's, in Afrikaans, one of the names for them is called a decent put. A decent put, which means 1,000 feet. But they obviously don't have 1,000 feet. I mean, there's just no ways. They can have a couple of hundred, depending on the length of them. In fact, we might even keep this guy because it's just so well preserved by the sun. And just do a quick leg count on him. Well, quick. I'll need to use my feet and my hands to get that count correct. But that is just gorgeous. And these typically, same as a pangolin, they'll actually roll up into a ball. They'll curl up into a beautiful spiral.
Sorry about that, but welcome to a Pridelands here in Baluli Game Reserve in the Greater Kruger National Park, where things are a lot calmer than they were this morning with a herd of impala. They're very relaxed. I was just watching them to make sure because they were looking in the other direction. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me is Gert. And like I said, we are bringing you this live safari from Pridelands. So we've just come back out to the open plains to scan for giraffe and zebra and all sorts of things, but there isn't much here, except there's now a female group of impala. All the boys seem to have vanished, and there is only just one proud male off to the left-hand side. He has won the prize and is now with these lovely ladies. And he's on high alert. He's been chasing a few of the younger rams, which are just coming up ahead. He's been chasing them around and not wanting them to come anywhere near his girls. But I think he has forgotten that mating season is now over and that he is a little bit too late. But we'll give it to him anyways. Not even any birds this afternoon. It's very quiet. Even for elephants. We haven't found one elephant yet, but we will hopefully see some. My goal is to at some point get a beautiful silhouetted herd of elephants moving through this open plain, because it's at quite a great slope. That I don't know if you can really notice that, but the impala are walking uphill now, and if we can park down nice and low, it would be really beautiful. Or even to have impala bounding about at sunset would be quite nice. I was hoping we get that with the lions yesterday, because this is where the lionesses walked. They walked across this open area and headed north. They might be back tonight, who knows? We shall see. But for now, all is calm here at Pridelands. You can see the ewes just grooming themselves, swishing their tails as they normally do, just doing general impala things, and the ram on lookout. He's very busy. You can see he looks over his shoulder and then he looks ahead. Must be very stressful being an impala ram, especially when you've got some other males that want to steal the herd away from you. Again, not that they're really mating or anything at this time now, that rutting season is finished. And they typically become a bit more social, where you can see many herds of impala ewes meeting up together, and the males will also not be so territorial, and they'll be quite happy to have other males pop on by. It's just for a few months of the year that they become quite aggressive, well, to one another. And they're just nibbling on the small shrubs that are popping up in this open plain. I'm surprised we haven't seen cheetah here yet, because this is sort of the perfect area. But maybe when we eventually get signal on Quenga, which is the property just adjacent to us in the east, there's some huge open areas there too, lined with leadwoods. It's actually really beautiful. One of them is called Cheetah Plain. So this cheetah have been sighted down in that area. And there has been some cheetah sightings up here, just not since we've been here. But one day, one morning, we'll be lucky. I thought I heard some ground hornbills for a second, but it could just be my imagination. This is another thing that we could see out in these open areas. I'm surprised that the zebra and things aren't back. But anyways, they must be doing one of their little mini migrations and have moved over into Jajani. There's also some nice open plains and some big watering holes down that side. Impala's walking with a mission now. He had his head down. Found something to eat. That's all he was up to. Now, something that we have been looking for, which we will continue to search for, is the impala ewe with horns. So, Kalena, we're going to head towards Leopard Dam, and that's the area that she's been hanging around in. I haven't seen her yet. Like I said, I've just seen a picture of her, but she has been sighted a few times, but with a herd that's very, very nervous. So it's been quite difficult to sort of catch her. But I think from here, our next move is to go to Marula Lane and meander down that lovely pathway under all the marula trees, and hopefully find some interesting things along the way before we get to Leopard Dam. And if we have no luck after that, then we'll probably go back towards the dam right outside the eco-training camp, as I'm sure the elephants will be on their way for their second drink. There were quite a few elephants around camp today. But we will move on from here, and I will keep an eye out for all sorts of wonderful creatures.
Okay, so the adventure continues here at and beyond in Ngala. So we're still at the waterhole. We're going to just bide our time here patiently. I feel like that is going to be the name of the game today. Patience. Just waiting in the right places, seeing what happens. So you can see here, our hippos just went underwater, but they've actually been quite active. Coming up, going down, coming up, going down. They seem to be getting closer and closer to each other. At the moment, they're just doing it underwater. And so, a lot of people think, in Africa, people come here and they're scared of the predators. They're scared of the lions and the leopards and the hyenas and the wild dogs and that sort of thing. But if you look at it, factually, statistically, predators actually kill fewer people than the plains game, the ones that live on the plains. The herbivores, things like the what do you call this? A hippo. Things like hippos, rhinos, elephants, buffaloes. They kill more people than predators do. And it's because of this. You get to a waterhole. First time in Africa, you're doing a self-drive safari. You don't know what's happening. You're just having your own good time. It's very, very hot. You sit here for 2 minutes. So, chance potentially, potentially hippos are dangerous. Now, we're sitting here. Did you guys see that? So we're sitting here, chance, and the hippos are perfectly fine where they are. I'm very, very safe. They're not going to come and attack me. They're not going to come and do anything. They're not dangerous to me here. But chance, you come here, you do your own little safari. It's hot. You sit here for 2 minutes. You don't see any hippos. So you think, cool, I'm going to go swim. Chance, then you go and you dip your toes in the water. It's refreshing. So you go a little bit further in, maybe to your waist. But unknown to you, there's like 5 hippos underwater. Like this now. You can't see them. They can stay underwater for quite a few minutes at a time. And then they are dangerous. Because now you're going into their safe spot. So there's a male hippo that lives in this waterhole. This is his territory. He loves this waterhole. It's his home. And now you are going into his home, chance. And then, yes, he will defend his home. And he will attack you. And he will kill you. Now, chance, he's not doing it to eat you. Hippos are vegetarian. They just eat grass. They don't eat any meat. But he's just doing it out of self-defense. So they can be dangerous, chance. They have the potential for it. But only if you do something silly. Most of these animals will only attack you if you do something silly. If you try to get too close to them, you try and steal their babies. Oh, okay. So, as our hippos go underwater, we're going to carry on and send you across to Untitled, where Jared has found something very cool. Okay, so apologies for that, having a bit of a technical issue there at Punda, and you are still stuck with us delightful people here at, and we're going to go look at that hippo on the left there. Can you pat someone on the left there? Oh dear, a bird just landed on its head. So if you zoom in there you can see the bird. So that is an oxpecker. Now the oxpeckers will come and land on the hippos to drink. Because remember we said that the terrapin will sometimes hunt the birds that come on the side of the water. Coming to a waterhole is also dangerous for birds. Not just the zebras and the giraffes, also dangerous for the birds. So landing on the hippo is much safer. The bird knows the hippo is not going to do anything. I don't even know if the hippo knows the bird is there. It's got very tough skin, very thick skin on the hippo. So the bird can land there and he can drink safely. Nothing's going to attack him while he's on top of a hippo. It's one of the things that he's learned to do to survive. Land on the hippo. You see, in about a month's time, end of July, August, you'll see sometimes as the water recedes, you see the terrapins coming and sitting on top of the hippos. Because then they're safe and they can still get nice and warm from the sun because they're on top of the hippo. It's quite funny. And there comes another oxpecker to the other hippo. So we've got a question from Sabia. Sabia, just hold on, look at that hippo's head. A whole bird party just landed on him. A shame. I don't think he knows. His eyes are still open. So if he was bothered, he would just go underwater. Right now, he's happy to be a floating island. So Sabia's question was, do hippos get sunburned? Sabia, yes, they do. That's why hippos spend all of their time in the water during the day. They hardly ever come out of water when the sun's out. And they only come out at night. That's because their skin is it's very porous. And if they come out into the sun for too long, they can die. Their skin will dry out, it cracks, it bleeds. It's very, very vulnerable. In fact, if we zoom in on that hippo on the left there, OD, if you don't mind, just look at the colors of the ears, nice and pink. Now, it's not often that you see that, but now what we're going to do is send you across back to and beyond Punda for something that you also don't see too often.
Welcome back, everyone, and I apologize for the signal issues that we had earlier, but he's just moved slightly more into the open. How fantastic that. He stopped to smell They have an incredible sense of smell, and he'll be able to smell any ants or termites in the area. You'll see that there's quite a few rocks around him, and what he will do is he might turn those rocks over with his long claws that he has. How incredibly special is this? Now you might see that he has quite a few ants crawling around him, and so as he starts to dig into the nest where the ants are, there will be some of the ants, the soldier ants, will come out and try and attack him, but it doesn't bother him too much. Right, we're just going to move over slowly. We can see that he's busy digging. All right, well, I would like to thank all the kids for joining us today. Please do stay tuned and enjoy this beautiful pangolin sighting with us. We are now opening the floor to everyone to ask questions. Now I'm just going to ask Marcel to zoom in on his scales. So have a look how rigid those scales are. And as he gets older and older, the tips of those scales are going to break off. The edge is darker, and that golden color that you can see is from the pangolin busy walking over grass and branch.
With our hippos, and we do apologize about the technical issues at and beyond Pinder with the pangolin, but you did get to see it, so how cool is that? Really, really cool. And so my dad has been going on safaris for 40, 50 odd years, I think, maybe only 40 odd years, and I think he's only seen like 2 pangolins in the wild, so the fact that you guys got to see one even briefly is really, really awesome. Really, really awesome. But yeah, we're just relaxing here with our hippos. One of them has actually swam a little bit further away. Looks like he's going to the back of the water. I think it's a little bit shallower there. There's also a bit more shade. So maybe he's going to go relax on that section. Because it's actually quite interesting. It doesn't look like it. But I've seen this waterhole empty. So I know how deep it is. So right now, right in that middle part there where we last saw the hippo come up, it is quite deep. You know, the hippo will be completely submerged if he's on the bottom. I'd say it's probably close on 3 meters. So Ian Timothy wants to know how many hippos can fit into a waterhole. So Ian, let's take this waterhole for example. If we get OD to zoom out there, you can see how big this waterhole is. Now this is our second biggest waterhole on and beyond Ngala, Ian Timothy, and in here I have seen up to 14 or 15 hippos at one time inside this waterhole. Now out of those, let's say 15, there will be one big dominant male, and then mainly females, and then there will be a few sub-adult males, you know, ones that are not a threat to the dominant male. So Ian Timothy, it mainly just depends on the size of the waterhole. As this waterhole gets smaller and smaller and smaller, as it dries up during now, our dry season, which is winter, then a number of the hippos will leave. They're just running out of space, they can't submerge themselves, things like that. So sometimes the waterhole has 15, and sometimes the waterhole has 2. It just depends. Oh, but look at that. I'm going to go forward, because I have just seen something, not actually on the waterhole, just off to our left, that I think OD might be able to see. OD, if you just take the camera and you shine right here on this broken, so this is a fallen down knobthorn. So if you just zoom straight in there, OD, now go a bit more up and right, there. Now zoom straight in to the top left of your screen. There is a monitor. A monitor lizard. There we go. You can see him camouflaging. I looked at that and I was like, that looks weird. Doesn't look like. We're going to go a little bit forward, guys, just to see if we can get a view. I don't know if he's facing us. Is he facing us? Look at that camouflage. He is facing us, yes. But his head just seems to be behind the branch. The FC seems to think he's facing away. No, he's facing us. Yeah, he's facing us. Look at his feet. You see, look at the way, look at his claws. Look at the way his claws are facing. His sort of toes. They're coming towards the front of his body. So I think his head's just behind this branch here. I can't go any more forward because I don't know how much of a view you would get. But how is that camouflage? Absolutely incredibly camouflaged in there. This is one of our big monitors that we get. So now we get rock monitors and we get the water monitor. Now this one I would say is most likely the water monitor, just judging from its sort of distance to the water and its coloration as well. Margot. So Margot wants to know, are these monitor lizards related to the crocodiles? Margot, I'm going to tell you shortly, as soon as I find it in my book. I wouldn't be surprised if they are. I've never had that question before, so I'm not 100% on the answer. Let's have a look here. Smaller than rock monitors. I'm going to have to get back to you there, hey, Margot. I'm going to have to get back to you there. I imagine there would be some sort of connection if you follow the ancestry back enough. But I'd have to go and actually research that, Margot, and let you know in 5 days' time. Unfortunately, my book does not say if they are. Unfortunately not, but I used to live in Thailand. So I lived in Thailand for quite a while, and the monitor lizards that they have there, we went to this one park for lunch, and they grow 2 meters, 2.5 meters. These things are huge. They are massive. And both of the ones that we get here do actually get quite big. This is probably one of the bigger ones I've seen. And pretty intimidating when you see them swimming. They look a lot like the terrapins. In fact, that you just see the head as it comes past, as it swims along. And it's quite intimidating. And very, very strong, especially the tail. So the tail, as we said, is the part at the back on the far side of the image, the right-hand side. And a very useful tool in terms of defending themselves. So the rock monitors, they do have quite a good bite. They very, very strong bite, but they use their tail as like a sort of a whip. And they whip their tail up very, very quickly. You can actually see a couple videos on YouTube where something like a martial eagle or even a leopard is trying to attack one of these monitors. And it flicks its tail, and you can actually hear the whip as the tail sort of slices through the air. And it's quite intimidating. I've seen one video where the leopard actually backed off, where the martial eagle also flew away. But they still get, eaten by martial eagles. I have also seen that. I see here that one of their biggest threats, it says, is martial eagles and the honey badger. So that makes sense. Honey badgers just attack everything. No, they're not really scared. But you can imagine a guy like this hiding inside the tree like he is. Nothing's going to see it in there. In terms of any birds, any eagles flying over the top here. He's in a very dense area, so they weren't going to see him from above. The only, I would say, potential threat to him inside there is a snake. Something like one of the African rock pythons that we get that also would live or hide, ambush from a thicket like that. Could be a threat to him. Where he is now, but otherwise he is fairly safe inside of there. And inside there, he can even go, I'd say, there are probably a few ground birds that have a nest inside there. Maybe a squirrel might go into an area like that. And then this rock monitor will go for either of those things. So he's placed himself very well there in the shade. Okay, but we're going to sit here for a while. Let's see if this lizard moves a little bit, comes a bit more into the open. But we're going to spend some time here, just patiently waiting.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
Look at who we found this afternoon. It is Kumo, the giant elephant. He's not a giant elephant, but he's a rather large. Camp for the last few days. I've been now and then, but he is back at Marula Lane. Now, this is actually interesting because all the elephants moved away from Leopard Dam and have all been feeding up in the far sort of southeastern corner and then using Ndlovu Dam, which is outside the eco-training camp, to drink. So I wonder now, if Kumo is back here, I wonder if the rest of the breeding herds are also going to change their routes slightly and rotate a little bit. I mean, it's not uncommon for them to do that, for them to feed in the same area for a few days, maybe even a week at a time, and then sort of move around. But at one point, we couldn't drive down Marula Lane. We basically did our own drives down here. We would see almost all the big five around and near that dam, which was quite cool. So the elephants seem to be back in the area. What are you eating? A knobthorn? Those thorns are not going to affect him at all. I'm kind of envious because I wrapped myself up in a buffalo thorn earlier today, and I may or may not have cried. I won't confirm or deny, but I definitely have some scratches and was bleeding. So I'm always envious at the thick skin of an elephant and how they're able to just tear through these trees. So, Margot, I know this elephant has got a collar on it, and you've asked a question pertaining to if the elephants can outgrow them. They definitely can, which is why it's very important that we keep a close eye on them. So any photos that I do get, when I have a chance to edit them, I will send them on to Elephants Alive, which is the conservation program that is actually studying elephants, which is quite interesting. You can maybe check their page out and read some fun things that they're doing. So if I were to notice that an elephant that we saw that had a collar on it, it looked a little bit too tight, we would notify the relevant people and inform them of this, and pretty much maybe stay with the animal the entire time, and people would come out and sort something like that out quite quickly. Hey, big boy. But this is not the case with this elephant. Look at him. Hello, big boy. He's had a mud bath at some point, maybe earlier today, or maybe late yesterday afternoon. You can still see how he's covered in it. Yes. Hi, big boy. I'm just moving back for him. Sorry, he's a really large elephant, and like I say, with big elephant bulls and elephant cows, they don't need to come right up close to me, so I always just give them a little bit of space. Sorry, boy. I was pretty much right on his pathway. I didn't realize that was the path that he was going to walk. Off he goes, down into the drainage line. You can actually see it doesn't look like he's following a network at all, but if you look just in front of him, you can see how it opens up a bit there. So elephants and hippos, and I suppose, elephants and hippos are probably the two largest mammal species and make the best pathways. Buffalo do, but they spread out quite a bit, so they don't, walk in a straight line, necessarily following one another. I think all the smaller animals are very thankful, especially during the summer months when the vegetation is so thick in this area. At least it gives them a clear way through. And maybe a bit of a break from the ticks as well. I know what it's like going on a bushwalk through the long grass in summer, and you walk through a tick nest. It's an absolute disaster. Again, he's got the taste for trees with thorns. It'll be interesting if they do go down towards Leopard Dam, because it doesn't look like he's had a drink recently. And that's the closest water. So we might try and stick with these boys. There's a couple more that are on their way. Maybe they just cross the drainage and then drink from the northern side of Leopard Dam. But I'd like to go there because there's something that I want to show you, but I'd like some animals to head in that direction so we can do it all at the same time. Hallie, the tusks of an elephant are solid. Oh, sorry, I've got little Mapani bee things flying around my face. So they're not hollow at all. Not like, for example, an impala horn, where there's a bony protrusion, but the coating is keratin. So you can actually separate the keratin outer sort of layer from the horn when when the animal is not alive anymore. But that's not the same for an elephant tusk. It is very much solid. It's very heavy ivory. Even just a small piece you'd pick up and you'd be super surprised as to the weight of it. But I can see why you would think that they're hollow. Do you know where there is a section that is hollow? Is basically where the flap of skin sort of folds over the tusk. Up top there is a section inside the tusk that has got some nerves in them. And I always describe them as like a tentacle. So that sort of attaches, but then the part that we can see is not hollow. That part is solid. So the reason why Kumo the elephant turned around and looked at us like that is that it wasn't directed at us. It's because there's a young bull that is tailing him and has just come up from behind. And we're just sort of warning him. What you'll see, he's saying, don't come into my space. Not necessary. I'm eating here. And he's giving him the evil eye at the moment. You see, that young elephant is giving him a wide berth, but he's just so desperate to be close and in his space and to learn from him and to eat what he's eating, you know. Sassy Cassie, so some of the research that is being done on elephants by Elephants Alive, it's a project that I'd really like to find out more about. And actually, I'd love to go on one of their sort of data collection research runs. I don't know what they call them, but anyways, when they go out and get their research, is the effects of bees on big trees, and then obviously the relationship with elephants, because we know that elephants can be labeled as quite destructive. Obviously, they want to eat the nicest of plants, and they often tend to be the biggest of trees, and they'll push them over and sort of break them. And a lot of people are not happy about this, but again, it's natural. It's just what happens. So they've started putting beehives in big trees to try and protect them. So that's like one study that they're doing. Another really interesting study that it's still ongoing, and I'd like to find out more about it, is again the relationship and the effects of an elephant and big trees and vulture nesting sites. So essentially they're wondering if elephants are responsible for destroying big trees. Whiteback vultures in particular is a vulture we normally see nesting in this area. They like to nest on marula trees and also knobthorn trees. And those are the two types of trees that elephants absolutely love. I mean, he's feeding on a knobthorn now. It's a small one though. And so basically the research is going on about, do elephants destroy those potential nesting sites? But then there's a curveball, because when an elephant ring barks a tree, it obviously exposes the cambium layer, which is a very sensitive part of the tree. You know, it's the layer responsible for the transportation of nutrients from the roots up to the leaves. And if an elephant sort of doesn't completely ring bark it, so just strips some of the bark, it allows for borer beetles to bore down into the wood a lot easier than if that tough outer bark is on them. And then they were saying, well, you know, those boring beetles and their larvae weaken trees, and that could also have an effect on a tree collapsing. So there's this whole study that they're doing between boring beetles, elephants ring barking trees, and vulture nesting sites. So I'd love to get in touch with some of the guys and chat to them a little bit more and find out what their recent studies have sort of shown. So it's really interesting stuff. But I suppose we can chat a little bit more about that later.
reasons to what the elephants do up in the Greater Kruger National Park area, there is absolutely little information that you can find about the Temminck's ground pangolin. And so this research that we're doing on Pindar at the moment is groundbreaking. We're trying to figure out the territory sizes, what time they get active. Going into winter, we have noticed that they are getting active earlier in the day than what they are in the night. We think we know what the gestation period is, but we'll be able to tell once we see that the male joins up with the female. And we have actually had it a couple of weeks ago where one of the females that has one of the tracking systems on it went and visited one of the males in his burrow for one night. And so we're hoping that they're mated. And then hopefully in the coming months we'll be able to see when she's got her pup. But isn't this just amazing? It's an opportunity that most of us guides will never be able to get. And we're actually very fortunate at the moment with the change in weather conditions that the researchers have been monitoring them a little bit more closely. Often they don't track them down, they just track them with the tracking system through the computers. But over the last 2 weeks or so, the habitat team has come out just to try and monitor the pangolins, seeing if the change in temperatures has affected them at all. And that's how we've been able to come out and see this pangolin today. All right, we're just going to stand up. We were sitting down. Now he's busy walking around at the moment trying to find ants. There's quite a lot of rocks around here. And he's been trying to turn the rocks over or dig around the rocks. Now, one of the ways that we actually find the pangolin when we're in a close-by area is just by listening. And I'm just going to keep quiet so you can hear how noisy he actually is. So that rustling that you can hear is him moving through the grass, under branches. You can sometimes hear him digging away at those incredibly long claws that they have. They're extremely... So I do apologize for my phone ringing. One of the ways that we do communicate with FC is through them phoning us, and my phone dropped and I have to keep it on, not on silent, so I can hear it when they call me back. So I do apologize for that wonderful ringtone that you just heard. So there was a question now about whether pangolins are reptiles like lizards or are they mammals, and you would think because they have scales that they must certainly be a reptile, but they are most certainly not. They are a mammal. And you'd also think, oh, they have scales, they must lay eggs, and they don't either. They give birth to live. They give birth to one young, and it is high up on my bucket list to see a pangolin pup. I believe it is called a pup. And one of the reasons why is that pup will sit on its mother's back, or quite low down on the back, kind of where the tail is, and hitch a ride wherever it goes. So in a very similar position to where those two tracking systems are. Obviously, this being a male, we don't have to worry about him carrying a pup, so we haven't had to try strategically place the tracking system on him. But with females, we would move it a little bit more over to the side to ensure that when she does have a pup, the pup will be able to sit nice and tight on her tail. Right, we're just going to move slowly forward. There's some little bee eaters flying around us, catching insects. I think they're hoping that we chase insects out of the grass, which is incredible. So he's obviously found a very good patch here that is full of ants. He hasn't moved too far yet. As I mentioned earlier, his sense of smell is incredible.
A bit superior to mine.
Now, we estimate this male to be around 8 kgs, so he's almost fully grown. The average weight of a Temminck's pangolin is around 12 to 14 kgs. Right, we're going to move one more time, see if we can get a slightly better view. The grass is quite long, and we don't want to stand in the way of the sun, so you can get some beautiful images. There we go. Actually, Marcel get untangled from some of the long grass here. So at the moment, it doesn't seem like there's any termite mounds around, and it is incredible watching these pangolins feed on termites. They can dig quite deep into that mound and incredibly quickly with those long claws that they have on their front feet. So if he does walk, you'll notice that he only walks on his back feet, and he tucks his two front feet in. And their front feet aren't used for walking at all. The sole purpose for their front feet, which has completely different foot structure and longer claws than the back feet, is for digging and feeding. All right, everyone, we're going to stick around a little bit with this pangolin. Hopefully he walks a little bit more into the open, but we're going to head over to Ngala.
So we have managed to find a spot where you can see the head of this monitor lizard. So it was facing the direction that we thought it was. It was facing towards us. So that's its head there, you can see. So yeah, there's its front legs, and we were looking from its left. So we were looking down the body is where we were. But even like that, I mean, how impressive is the camouflage? It's quite incredible. But from here, much, much better. You can see the face quite nicely. Looks like his eyes are closed. He is just having a rest. Even when we moved the car, we drove over a little branch and it cracked. But nothing. Didn't move his head, didn't do anything. Probably relying on his stillness to act as his camouflage, which makes sense because it is very, very good. But while you were away looking at an awesome pangolin, Margot, I did a little bit of research, and from what I can find, that these monitor lizards are not quite related to the crocodile. It says the main difference is that crocodiles are like a large reptilian carnivore, where these monitor lizards are actually a suborder, a subspecies of reptiles. It says that now people are starting to think that they're more closer related to sort of snakes. Snakes is like would be like, they refer to it as a sister of the monitor lizard. And I mean, now that they've said that and I read a bit about it, it makes sense. You know, they both have forked tongues, the snake and the monitor lizard, where the crocodile does not have that forked tongue. Unfortunately, this monitor is sleeping, so we're not going to see its tongue, but it does have a forked tongue. So, according to my research, Margot, it is more closely related to the snake than to the crocodile. It's very interesting. It's not often that we see these sort of monitor lizards, especially for so long. Generally, you see one that hears the car coming or feels the car coming through the vibrations, and they head off into a thicket. Okay, so you can see this guy's sleeping, so we are just going to maybe have a nap here with him. While we do that, though, we're going to send you across to Taylor on Marula Lane.
Finally, we have the scene that we've been talking about for weeks and weeks. Okay, maybe not that long, but for a while. We're on Marula Lane. We've got a herd of elephants. We just need to wait for more elephants to come and stand under these gorgeous marula trees that have climbed across the road. Oh, now we need a leopard up the tree, and it would be perfect, wouldn't it? Or some giraffe. That would also be quite nice. But it seems as though the breeding herds of elephants have moved back down to Marula Lane now, because we've got a whole bunch here just scattered all over. I haven't been able to find my favorite female elephant, and if it is, to confirm if it is the big breeding herd we have been seeing. I think it is, because Kumar normally hangs around with them. Well, he's not normally too far away from them, but there are a couple of breeding herds. And I do see one tiny little elephant, and I know that there is one really, really small one that is in this herd. That's not to say that they can't be in other herds. I think I'm going to have to move forward for you, Kat. I'm so sorry. I've sat myself down into basically a pretzel. Undo my legs there. Okay, let's go here. Let's see if we can get a nicer view. Because there's a tiny little baby just over here. We should be able to see it. If not, we'll look at these two young elephants. Hello guys, or ladies. Always. Never impressed when they see me. Or just the young Ellie cows munching away. I think it is our favorite breeding herd. I don't know if it's your favorite breeding herd, but it's definitely mine. It's nice to see them all the time. Just munching away on a tree that has been pushed down. You can see they like to feed on the knob thorns. Most of the marula trees around here have also been pushed on over. But it's really only this time of the year that we see them doing that. Very rarely in summer, when there's a fair amount of fruit and nice lush green grass for them to eat, will they actually do this. But it is surprising as to how much damage they can do. Do you know what? This is the same herd, because that little elephant on the left, well, not that it's tiny, that one that's just gone behind the tree, there's been one that has been constantly secreting from its temporal glands, so those glands that are just behind the eyes, and just the tusk shape looks quite similar. And we spent some time with it, I think it was yesterday morning when we were with the breeding herd. So I'm pretty sure it is them, which means that they'll be heading towards Leopard Jam, because they've already had one drink this morning, but they will definitely go and have another drink.
Okay, so we managed, Odie and I, not to fall asleep watching our sleeping monitor. But he hasn't done much. I must say, he hasn't actually done anything. He's just been camouflaging here. Odie and I were actually talking about the tree around him, which is a knobthorn tree, and how well he camouflages inside of this knobthorn. And, you know, I wonder, do they go to specific trees? So now we've got an interesting question from Gremlins General. I want you to know what the difference is between a rock monitor and a water monitor. So Gremlins, firstly, water monitors are slightly smaller than the rock monitor. The rock monitor is generally a little bit longer, maybe a little bit bulkier. And as the name suggests, a rock monitor you will find further away from water. You know, we often find those ones around the lodges with the walls and but more sort of rocky areas, where these water monitors, they'll always be close to a water source, be it a water hole, a pan, which is just a very small water hole, or rivers, lakes, any water sources like that. And then colour. Gremlin General, colour is also very different. So on a on a water monitor, you'll see it's got these sorts of colors, got a few stripes, got a few spots on the legs. It's more of a sort of grey color with sort of yellow blotches, yellow stripes. And I actually read earlier when I was doing that research that the young, the babies, are very, very, very black. So very black and yellow. It's like a very bright warning colors, making them look dangerous. So they're black and yellow colors. To help them sort of, avoid predation. Where the rock monitors, they're a bit more sort of generally yellow in color, a bit more sort of browns, less of the greys and the darker colors. There's more of those lighter brown colors. And also because they live in different areas, different habitats, they feed on different prey. So they've got different food sources and also different predators. Those are the main differences. Most of the rest of the stuff, they're all very, very similar in terms of their hunting strategies, their eggs, that sort of thing. So Karishma wants to know what sort of species these lizards pose a threat to. So I think what you're trying to ask is, what they prey on and if there's anything that they, solely focus on. So actually their food sources are very, very widely ranged. They'll go from anything from small mammals, snails, millipedes, the ones that are not in a water hole like this. We even go for crabs, mussels. They'll go for fish, frogs, insects, pretty much anything they can get. Anything that's smaller than them, they will try and catch. They'll even take, they'll scavenge. They find maybe roadkill, because these animals live everywhere. They found roadkill, they will eat that. The ones in Thailand feed on bread sometimes as well, that people try and feed them, which is not very good, but they do. Those little terrapins that we saw, baby terrapins, these monitor lizards will snatch up. So they've got a wide variety of food that they can eat, which is good. So they don't pose a threat to any specific person. Sassy Cassie, my old friend. Sassy Cassie wants to know what tries to eat these monitor lizards. Sassy Cassie, so the water monitors, like this one here in front of us, it will mainly get preyed on by things that live in and around water, or close to, so things like crocodiles, maybe a fish eagle, but not, maybe a fish eagle if it's a baby monitor, and also pythons, other snakes. Well, snakes will eat these monitor lizards. And then, like I was saying earlier, the rock monitor will have things like the martial eagles and the honey badgers. Leopards are also known, to catch one of these. It's a bit dangerous, but leopards will try for that. So they have quite a few predators themselves. The difficulty for them is that their predators come from the sky, being the birds and the eagles, and from the land, being snakes, leopards, crocodiles. So they got to look up, down, left, right. They got to look everywhere. And I think that's why he chose a nice thorn tree, very, very dense, as his place to hide. He thought, if I've got to look everywhere, might as well cancel out as many options as I can. No bird is going to catch him inside of there. Or crocodile. It's mainly the python will be his biggest risk inside of there. But it's interesting that he chose the thorn tree, because now I'm sure if he tries to slide across that, it does hurt. But what we're going to do, I think we've interrupted him long enough, so we're going to leave him to sleep. And we are going to leave the waterhole and see what else we can find. While we do that, though, we'll send you across to Taylor at the Pridelands, who's got a herd of elephants.
We are indeed. We haven't moved. I actually thought we were going to lose them, but then very kindly, this young elephant cow came back to feed on the knobthorn that she's just been pushing around. I'm really surprised at elephant strength when they get, at this sort of age, because she's not particularly big. She's taller than me. Maybe she's just taller than me. Hat, would you say? Or do you think she's much taller than I am? I mean, yeah, maybe as tall as Gert is. I like to think I'm 6'1", but definitely not. But but she's not particularly big. And you can also see that she hasn't got any swollen mammary glands just yet. So she's not pregnant. So she must be younger than 10 years old or so. So I'm just trying to figure out how old she must be. But she's not far off that, though. Not at all. But a lovely cow. This is the one that gives me the most trouble of all the elephants in the herd. And her tusks grow actually very to her trunk. I don't know if you can almost see they're pushing narrower. So they're sort of coming in closer rather than growing out a little bit wider. So that's how I remember her. Look, she's got like an extra fold of skin there from her tusk squashing up against her trunk. Not that that's really going to cause her too much trouble. But that's just a little identifying feature that I use to remember her. But this is the one that's thrown sticks at me. She shakes her head at me like she's just done there. Are you going to throw sticks at me today? It's funny how we all have our own personable experiences with these animals, and I don't know what it is. Sometimes some people get elephant bulls wanting to come right up to their car, and I move away before they can do that, but I always get the young cows having a go at me. I take it as a compliment. Ooh, Karishma, elephants have got an unbelievable memory, but to say how good is it, I'm not so sure. We'll have to get them to play a memory game, and then we'll be able to see. But you can definitely tell they are more intelligent than a lot of different animal species with the way that they can remember the migratory paths. Oh, here she comes. She's going to come up to the car. So, and remembering watering we haven't used for years and years and years, and then, returning to them. Hi, big girl. Yes, you've also got a hole in your left ear. I think she comes right up to the car. She's very curious. Yesterday morning, she actually reversed towards the vehicle, and I thought it would be if she defecated on it. I would definitely have laughed. Why have you got a leaky ear? She looks like she's got some secreting from that right ear of hers. I don't know what's happened there. You don't always see that. Maybe she's got a little bit of an ear infection or something. Just agitation. Hey, big girl. Thank you for being nice and not throwing anything at me today. We're working on our relationship.
Guys, we've just found a Cape fox. It's the one sleeping in that little three-thorn thicket over there. So Gendre spotted that. I just want to put it out there. That was not me. That was Gendre. We're about 180 yards distant from it, and it's curled up in a little ball sleeping. So we're not going to go closer just yet. I don't know how relaxed this animal is. There is a road that actually goes less than half of this distance to where the fox is. So what we'll do is we'll just watch him a little bit from here first, and then we'll move down a little bit closer. He's aware of me, so I just don't want to walk too close there, because he is watching us and he's very aware of it. So I just want to be very careful of that. We'll move out there with the vehicle just now. But let's just watch him a little bit from here. So these guys they're rodent specialists. So they're going for small mammals, and like so rodents in particular, and they'll actually use those huge ears, not as big as a bat-eared fox that we've seen before, but still very large ears, and they use those for sniffing out the rodent burrows, and then they'll dig like crazy to get to those little things. I mean, they're not exclusively rodent specialists. I mean, they'll go for other little things as well, but the major part of their diet is rodents. Oh, we're really incredibly lucky to see this little guy. And it seems nice and relaxed. Okay, we had a super comfortable distance from the animal. Like I said, it's probably about 180 yards. It's not reacting to us at all, so we just want to see. We'll give it a couple of minutes to settle down in the vehicle, and then we'll actually just reverse back and we'll take that road that's a little bit closer to it there. Maybe it'll stick, because if it sticks around, yes, it's going to be a fantastic sighting. There's yawning. He's actually kind of just getting started for his day. You'll start yawning quite a bit more, scratching, rolling over, stretching, that kind of stuff. Same as you've seen lions do, leopards do it. A lot of these predators exhibit that kind of behavior before they get up and get going. And they actually den underground, and they'll go down tiny holes. I'm going to give you probably 20 centimeters in diameter, a hole that size. They'll be able to get down, and they'll have a little chamber at the end, and they'll have their pups underground. And yes, this is super exciting to see these little guys. There, look at this. He's actually becoming more active now. Watch it. There you go. He's getting up. He's getting up. And it is totally ignoring our presence here. He's not worried at all. So he might actually, I think he's lying down there again. Can you see it? Yeah, he's lying down again. So he may even have a burrow system in that thicket over there. Lisa has asked, is a Cape fox related to what they call a fennec fox? And a fennec fox, I think, is the same genus. It's Vulpes. This is Vulpes charma. I think a fennec fox, if I recall correctly, is the same genus as this. Well, those fennec foxes are absolutely gorgeous. We don't get them anywhere near us. They're North Africa. But I would imagine it's the same ecological role. Very, if not this identical, probably very, very similar ecological roles. So, but if you're keen, I think let's just amble, but we're going to reverse back, and then we're going to take this road that loops around just on the other side of this big tree. The animal seems super relaxed, so let's see if it'll actually stick around there for us a little bit. It'll be really good if we can. And we're not going to try to get too close to it. We just want to get a slightly different angle, a little bit of a better view of it for you. So we'll just go nice, a slow pace, nice and relaxed. There's no rush. Okay, it's watching us. Sorry, I'm making this difficult here for Genre. It's like up and down now. Oh, and he's gone down again. Time has asked, will it chase us if we get too close to it? No, definitely won't. These are tiny little animals, so definitely won't do that. But let's go back still and just see if we can. It just looked up at us and went back to sleep again. So I'm actually hoping he's just going to stick around. A Cape fox is about that size. The body length is about that size. And tail length is actually almost longer than the body in some cases. So total length, you're looking at about like that, maybe a little bit more. Small, they're tiny little things. Much smaller than European foxes. Come on, let's hold thumbs here, guys. Okay, you got it straight ahead of the bush here. Okay, we're just gonna, do you want me to stop here in the shade, Jandre? Will it help? I'm just going to go past this little patch of shade over here, and then we're going to sit. I'm not going to get out now because I don't want to give it anything unusual. Are you okay there? Well, that's a nice view there. This one seems really nice and relaxed. I mean, look at that. That is fast asleep. Ringish has just asked, why is the tail longer? I genuinely don't have an answer for you on that. I will have to check that up. It may have got to do, or it may have to do with anti-predation behavior. Being a very, very small mammal out here, they'll get caught by leopards, they'll be caught by cheetah, those kind of things. And what I've seen with Cape ground squirrels, that also have got these big bushy tails, use them for other reasons as well, but we can get to that when we see one. But I've actually seen Cape ground squirrels with their tail bitten off completely. So it could be that having a big tail can act as some kind of decoy. But sorry, I'm just going to try sit still here. I'm getting too animated when I'm talking here. This little guy is completely relaxed. He's very aware of our presence, but the fact that he hasn't got up or moved is brilliant. Valentino says, has just asked, in terms of the sociality of these species, are they social or do they live a solitary life? They go in small family groups. So you'll have a territorial pair, they're monogamous, and this little pair will have their territory. They will defend it aggressively against other Cape foxes, and they'll also have youngsters in the area as well. So you could get a group of 4, 5, 6 of them within a very, very small area. It doesn't necessarily mean that they forage together all the time. And if you look at jackals, that same kind of thing. We'll say, well, you get jackals, you got a territorial pair, they defend it, they've got, they're cooperative breeders, they've got these helpers, but it doesn't mean that they're going to go out foraging together all the time. A lot of that has got to depend on the density of the food items. So yes, these animals are social within their own family groups, but they are strictly territorial when it comes to other Cape fox groups intruding on the area. We're actually going to idle forward again. This is a beautiful sighting and he's so relaxed. So let's go forward a little bit. I just want to watch this bush on the side here that it doesn't cut in front of Gendre's view of here. Just so when, I'm just going to turn you at a slight angle just to, there we go. And we won't go closer than this. I mean, there's no point in like trying to get closer and closer and closer, and then he gets up and moves off. I'd rather observe the animal like he's completely in a relaxed state, ignoring us. But look at those colors, eh? One of the other names for it is a silver fox. Okay, we're just going to stick it out here and just see what this animal does.
Hi everyone. So under normal circumstances, on a day like today, we would be watching rugby, eating biltong, playing beer pong, having a braai, maybe have a massive breakfast, massive lunch, massive brunch. But under these circumstances, what we've decided to do with our dads, well, Yapi's gone to teach his dad how to identify trees. Sean has come with his dad, and they are birding, which is something Sean never does. Nicky is tracking with his dad. Eric, I'm actually never too sure about what Eric does. Anyway, for those of you that were fortunate enough to spend today with their dads, I hope you made the best of it. I hope you took in every single second. From us that couldn't, to our dads, we miss you, we love you. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Puppies.
So this little one is still fast asleep over here. And very, very cute. You can actually see how he's wrapped his tail right around the body. And I keep saying his. I have absolutely no idea if it's a male or female. I cannot see from this distance, so I'm really just going out on a limb and taking a flying leap there. But considering that it is Father's Day, let's call this one a he, and let's say he's a dad. And let's pretend he's got a whole lot of pups hidden in those bushes there. So, happy Father's Day, Mr. Cape Fox. But on a serious note, yeah, happy Father's Day to everyone out there. I hope it's an amazing one for all of you. All fathers to be. And happy Father's Day to Gendre. Okay, here's a gorgeous bird. Sorry, Gendre, this is going to be a tough one to find, but it's a very, very special one. Okay, I'm going to try to describe it to you, and I'm going to climb off here. Guys, just bear with us. This is a very cool bird, if you can see it. You see that one hopping on the ground over there? There's a ton that's going from right to left.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I know it's a tough one. This is a, just tell me when you got it. It's very tough, I know. I won't move. Well, we've got a really cool bird here. It's difficult to find. You got it. Oh, well done. Okay, Genre's got, this is called a bokmakiri. A bokmakiri. And that is actually a young bird. Oh, well, not the bokmakiri itself, but that individual is a young bokmakiri. And I'm just going on the coloration, the fairly dull coloration over there. This is another kind of bush shrike. So remember we were talking about that shrike earlier, that or Jackie Hangman, the butcher bird, common fiscal, the accepted name for it. So that's a different group of the shrikes. This is one of the bush shrikes. So those of you down who have been down to joined our colleagues down at Pinda, they've got other bush shrikes there. And in Ngala, they've got like orange-breasted. They've got, what's that other, gorgeous bush shrikes. And this one is a fantastic songster. They've got these beautiful liquid ringing calls. And they often call in duet. So you'll get a male and a female, and they'll start. And then the other one starts. And then the other one starts. And the other one starts. I'm a shocking mimic. But I wonder if I can. I'm standing dead still. Otherwise, Genre's going to kick me off the vehicle. If you want, if you can bear with me 1 second, I will give you a very quick rendition of it. But just keep watching that bird. That's a really, really special bird to see. Alright, so yeah, my calling's not going to work, unfortunately. Wait, here we go. I'm going to give you a quick, this is an example of the sound. Okay, and we're going to stop it right there. I just want you to hear that. That's a beautiful call. That's just one of the calls. And yeah, I think I've mentioned it before. You should always be very, very careful about playing bird calls. That call that I did is not going to attract this bird at all. I did it for a very short period of time so you could hear it, but also the wind is blowing in our favor. So it's blowing from the bird towards us. So that bird probably wouldn't even have heard that sound. But, you've got to be very careful about moving the vehicle when Chandra is filming. But how pretty is that, eh? Very, very, very cool bird. And it's a predator, so that thing is going around on the ground looking for insects. Those armored ground crickets that we've been seeing, this bird will snaffle them in a heartbeat if it gets one of them. And the bush shrikes are also notorious for raiding other birds' nests. They are not averse to taking chicks out of nests if they get a gap. Yes, this is brilliant. So you got a bokmakiri and a kit fox. Mrs. Lapping, you're quite correct. This is known as a bokmakiri. Bokmakiri is the accepted term in bird books. But the bokmakiris are part of the bush shrike group, the bush shrike groups. And that's because of their skulking behavior in bushes. Okay, these are, out of all of them, they're probably the most conspicuous of the lot. Aside from the gorgeous colorings, and this one is still quite dull. I'm sitting on the back here with a G&T that John reported for us just now, but so I don't have my binoculars with me. I can't see if it's. I think it's a. I'm not guilty. I have nothing. but yeah, this bird, I don't know if it's an adult or that's just out of breeding plumage, or it's a youngster. I'm just going to jump off here. Of course, these are predatory birds. They're not omnivores. They're not regarded as omnivores. But, a lot of these things out here, you can read as much literature as you want. You can observe a bird, and you're always going to get something going over there. So, and especially if you look at times, if there's food is in short supply, there's not that many things that won't be able to have a slight switch in diet if necessary. But these are accepted as they are predators. They'll go for little insects. They'll go for lizards. They'll go for caterpillars. They'll whatever they can catch. So very typical of the other bush shrikes as well. Lisa has just asked a question that I really love. And again, we touched on it briefly, is why must you be careful when playing bird calls? Is I know the tendency is out there these days, and you've got a birding app on your phone, or you can mimic a bird call, and it's all very cool and fun, until you need to start thinking that you actually, what is your reason for doing it? If you're just doing that bird call so you can see a bird and get a tick on your list. Birds have calls for very, very, very particular reasons. They're alarm calls, they're territorial calls, they're contact calls. It's how birds talk. So you've got to be very careful, and you've got to understand that when you go out there and you start mimicking these sounds, or you've got your birding app and you start playing it, it can really disrupt, it changes their behavior. And our objective is to be able to watch the shrike doing what it would be doing even if we weren't here. To be able to watch that Cape fox, he's fast asleep. He's under a tree. Sorry, I know Jean-Ray really enjoys his birds. That's why I was trying to keep that segment on there a little bit longer. We want to be able to watch that Cape fox sleeping under that bush. In other words, doing what it would be doing if we weren't here. Now, we wouldn't go make squeaking noises and weird noises to try to attract the Cape fox. So why would we do it with birds? That's my own opinion. I know there's a lot of people out there that would beg to differ, and they'd say, well, it has no impact, but there's enough evidence as well. And I think I would be more comfortable if someone was trying to call up birds or look at birds in an area that is very, very, very infrequently visited. But there's some interesting stuff on the impact of repeated calls in areas where there are lots of people. So in other words, everyone goes to the same spot. They know there's a pearl-spotted owl there, and they call the owl out. And you can really mess them around by doing that. So I personally prefer not to use apps and that kind of stuff to try call birds. But that's my own thing. So Frisky has just asked, do Cape foxes' long tails play an important part in their hunt? And again, that's a question I wouldn't be able to answer, and I'd have to check that. But I really can't see that being the case. These animals they're rodent specialists. They typically dig rodents out of burrows. So, I'm trying to think of different scenarios how a tail like that size and that bushy may assist them. What it can do, and this is a different thing there, is in these very arid environments, or when we're in a semi-arid environment, but if you look at these other species of desert foxes, the fennec foxes, those things, also got big bushy tails. Even foxes like in Europe, where you can get super cold winters, these environments out here get super cold as well. But although they've got dens, they will often sleep outside, and it may just be that these nice bushy tails assist with keeping them warm. They're rolled, curled up in a ball like that. That can help there. It does also, here's another interesting, I mentioned it as a helping, if there's a predator going after him, very often as a predatory, detergent. When you're trying to wash other predators, no, as a predatory deterrent, a lot of these animals will actually bulk themselves up by sticking their hair up. And, that can increase the look, how big their body looks. And, and I think those are I'm trying to think of other ways why the tail would help him with actual foraging behavior, but I don't think it would. Piloerection is actually the term for hair sticking up if you... Okay, I really apologize. I didn't get the name there, but the question there... obviously they've taken a different evolutionary branch, however you want to look at it. And so you get ones that are big fossorial predators, in other words, or cursorial predators, in other words, they chase after prey and they can keep going for long distances. And then you get these little guys that say, whoa, hang on, I'm going to find your hole, I'm going to dig down and I'm going to pull you out. So it's just two very, very different strategies, but they are canids, they are dog family, yeah. What a special afternoon. There's a Cape Fox fast asleep, completely ignoring us. We've had a beautiful Bokmakiri who's actually still in the middle of this open patch foraging. So he may even be getting harvested termites now. Hannah has asked, can the Cape Fox vary in colour? Yes. This is their standard colour, so you're not going to get huge variation, but you definitely will see animals that are slightly lighter, slightly darker. Some have got a little bit more of a silver sheen, others are a little bit more that russety pinkish colour. But the standard body colour is all the same. That lovely silver grey back there, and then that brownish on the flanks, and the pink on there. Is very, very, very pretty animals. Or that Bokmakiri is moving over to where the fox is. There's a lot of foraging activity going on now. This is really good. I actually want to try and see what he's going to gobble up. But I think it's small insectivores. There's a fantastic question. Ian has just asked, do Cape Foxes get goosebumps when they're cold? And actually, most animals will actually get goosebumps when they're cold. The reason they get goosebumps, like I say, the hair stands on end. That's called piloerection, and that helps trap warm air against the surface of the body, and in so doing, actually conserves core body temperature. So yeah, I would imagine Cape Foxes would get goosebumps when they're cold. I haven't seen it personally. In other words, I've never sat with a Cape Fox like at my feet in sub-zero temperatures, and but certainly I could imagine that would happen. Wow, yes, there's a Cape Fox and Bokmakiri right in that same clump over there. Oh, this is fantastic, man. Yes, now I wonder if I'm willing to bet there's a den inside there somewhere. No, not necessarily with pups, but they will use the same hole year on year on year if they've had successful breeding attempts at that location. And obviously there's that disturbance factor. If they've been disturbed there for whatever it is, And in this environment, you could get a herd of eland. We've actually had it in the past. A meerkat colony was completely wiped out underground by a massive herd of eland. It was probably about, probably 200 eland. That we got to these meerkats one morning, and this entire colony had just been completely obliterated, this burrow system. You couldn't even see where it was. So, that's just one of those freak incidents in nature. And, something like that could happen with Cape Foxes. Pythons would eat Cape Foxes. Inko has just asked, would Cape Fox be a threat to meerkats? And we're chatting with one of our meerkat habituators this morning, Veronique, and she's witnessed meerkats aggressively chase and pursue African wildcats. She's seen them chase off black-backed jackals. So, and those are substantially more potent predators on a wider range of prey items. Certainly the jackal is, there's no question about that, than are Cape Foxes. And so the fact that, you can get a group of meerkats banding together and actually chasing after those predators, I would swing the odds heavily in favor of the meerkats. And I would doubt whether a Cape Fox would actually catch a meerkat pup. But that being said, hey, this is the outdoors. It's nature. Anything goes. Yes, but what a landscape as well. The red dunes. I think just because this is such a good sighting, and it's also really good just to spend time with these animals, they get more habituated. I think Jeandre and I, we're just going to spend probably another 10 minutes or so here.
I'm practicing my reversing right now because, you know, I just thought I just want to do something different today. I'm tired of going forward, so I thought we would just go backwards. So we'll be going in the right direction in 1 second. I apologize. Ta-da! Because what I really wanted to show you was this magnificent sunset. Look at that. Chad's going to do something magical with the camera now. And I think I've blocked the sunset out with all the trees that are now in the way. But there we go. It's starting to sort of actually a little bit chilly now, but not as cold as the last few days, which is great because at this time of the day I normally had 2 jackets on by now. But the reason why we've left our elephants and moved towards the west is because there were some lion contact calls that were heard not too long ago, maybe about 20-30 minutes ago. Now, we know that the lionesses we had yesterday were mobile across the open area and they were quite hungry. You saw how lean they were. And then they moved on over into Jajani. And then throughout the entire morning, we did hear lions roaring. And I did mention it on the sunrise safari. But what they could have done is done a loop back from Jajani and come back to the sort of southwest where there is a lot of animals around. So I don't know if they were successful or not, or maybe they were male lions that were roaring and they were trying to avoid them. Definitely seen these lionesses trying to give the males a slip. But let's carry on. We're going to continue searching for them. We have stopped and we've listened a little bit and we haven't heard anything. I got excited because I heard squirrels alarming, I heard impala alarming, and then it was nothing. So we'll just keep checking around here. There's quite a few little roads that sort of zigzag to where the boundary is. The northern boundary, which is Jajani, which is not too far from us. So no tracks just yet, but it could mean that they're maybe between us and the northern boundary. So I think from here I'll probably go north, see if we can see any tracks coming this way. That would help us. There wasn't anything around here today. We did have a look around. We didn't go all the way up to the north. So they could have just been settling there, and we just decided not to check that area for whatever reason. Mind your head. So that's a very thorny tree, a knob thorn. Again, the elephants are pushed over onto the road. Well, not completely over onto the road. Okay, otherwise it's fairly quiet on this side, but off you go back to Tswalu, where you're going to see an animal that I've never seen before.
So, as we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we're just going to spend some nice quality time with this Cape Fox. We're also hoping that as it starts getting a little bit cooler, he may actually start getting up and doing something, like brushing his teeth, or no, we'll just stick it out here. And also, we don't know what's inside that thicket, and there may well be other Cape Foxes inside there. So it's always worth. And as you know, Alejandro and I've got we've got this habit of just kind of like doing a stakeout at one spot for a long time. So just bear with us, and I think let's see what happens. I think it's just a wonderful opportunity to be able to observe the species that isn't actually very frequently seen in most other areas. Yes, it will be great if there is a den inside here. It could be. I mean, there could be. They love denning inside these thickets. And we are now in. You've got that big dune behind it, and then Jeandre doesn't have to swing across to our right, but to our right there's another dune. So we're actually now on the level area between these two dune crests, and this is what we term dune streets or dune valleys. These big wide areas, and they'll typically be denning on these harder, the harder surface on these areas rather than up on the soft sand on the dunes. We've seen these on Swallow. We've seen this species, Cape foxes, actually being preyed on by a leopard. And I kind of touched on it briefly earlier, is African rock pythons, or what they call a Natal python these days, I think. They will happily go down a den and snaffle youngsters if they can get them. They'll catch the youngsters. Caracal have been, or some people call them lynx. Caracal have been recorded catching these as well. I think that they've got to watch out for is, those of you who were with us a couple of weeks ago, you may recall we had those beautiful sightings of giant eagle owls. So those huge owls that females get to well over 2 kilograms. And they would happily snatch a Cape fox, even an adult. This is certainly within the prey range of them. And then, but that would be in the evenings. And then during daylight hours, any of your larger raptors like martial eagles could catch them. Lisa has just asked, how long do Cape foxes live for? And, I don't know what the numbers or the figures would be in captivity, but we've seen foxes here for known individuals, 6, 7, 8 years consecutively. So, but again, out in the wild, I'm a big believer in if something lives as long as to the point until it gets eaten. It's one thing, and very often, like bearing in mind, very often the studies done on longevity of animals, on thermoregulation in animals, feeding behavior in animals, has often been done under captive conditions. So you got these animals that are, they in captive conditions and they super relaxed around adult people, and you can just look and monitor it. But often that doesn't translate into what's really happening on the ground. But coming back to your question about the age of things, I mean, some of these species are remarkable. I mean, these tiny little birds, and maybe there'll be one hopping around here we can show you just now. It's called a white-browed sparrow weaver. And I think, oh my word, I've got the coolest, unbelievablest sighting. That's not a word, but I've just made it a word. Unbelievablest. Sorry, Jean-Andre, just bear with me there, bugger. While that fox is sleeping, and I'm talking about these birds, have a look at this gory, not for sensitive viewers, sighting I just found you. And this is just like, this is nuts, man. So the birds that I was talking about, the little ones, they've been recorded getting to over 12 years old. But I've just found this bird over here, and I don't know what it is. I'll have a look. Okay, who are you, and what are you, and what are you doing there? Okay, this bird is the species I was about to tell you. It gets like 12 years old sometimes. And in wild birds, this has somehow been caught right at the entrance of its, and this bird is completely dried out. It's bone dry. So it's been caught at the entrance of the nest somehow on something. And I think what's happened here, this is like how freaky nature can be. There's a thorn branch that is extended down here behind the bird, and it's almost like the nape of its neck actually got hooked on one of these thorns, where it was either going in or trying to come out of this nest. This is a freak accident in nature. This is unbelievable. Yeah, it's literally stuck on this thorn branch at the back of here. I mean, what are the odds? You've made yourself a lovely nest, and then that goes and happens. And that's what I say, location, eh? Geez, I didn't even notice that. And again, the lesson there is when you're looking at animals, you're stopping and you're observing, Cape fox, a bird or anything, you can actually, there's a whole lot of other things going around, and you can be focused on something and you can miss a whole lot of other stuff. So we're just going to spend some more time here and see what else we get you.
Okay, so we are now making our way back towards the road. So where we went now was looking for the Ross male. So part of the tracking teams on their 12-kilometer walk this morning, they found the one Ross male just further back behind us. We went back straight to where he was seen, where he was lying down, but he seemed to have moved now, because now the temperature's dropped quite a lot. It's cooling down a lot. You can see I got my jersey on, my fleece on, and I think this Ross male took that opportunity of the cooler weather to get up and go. So unfortunately, we missed him, but it was worth a look. By all means, he could have been there. I'm not sure where he has gone, and I'm hoping that he might call for us. Seems like he was on the exact same track as the rest of the pride, but he hadn't joined up with them yet, but he was calling throughout the morning, trying to see if he could, contact them. They did not respond. It's very similar to what we saw this morning with the young male and that female. Males calling, females ignoring. I think it's standard across all species. And so I'm hoping if we hang around the area, we should hear him calling. And then, be able to pinpoint exactly where he has moved to. That is my hope. If he plays along with it, you never know. You never know. But we're also not far, so I need to change gear. There we go. We're not far from where we last saw the sub-adult male this morning. So while we're waiting for this other Ross male to call, we're going to head in that direction. See if we can find him. He might even call for us like he did the whole morning. And see if we can get some cool stuff from him. He's been quite good for us lately. He's been walking, he's been improving. He's looking fairly good. He's alone, which is not ideal, but we also so we got a question from Marshall asking if I have a favorite lion. Marshall, I do have a favorite lion, and it is the sub-adult male, the one that we hopefully going to go and find now. He is my favorite lion. He's been through a lot of hard times, but he's still, looking good. He's still surviving. He's making, he's pushing, he's trying. He is the proper sort of lion, someone that tries very hard. The heart of a lion. That's him. So he's my favorite. Sometimes he stresses me out, especially when he's with this female with the cubs, Marshall. Then he's not quite my favorite. Purely because, he's looking to keep himself alive. So he will fight that female, fight her cubs for the food, which is obviously not good because he could kill both those cubs, which we don't want to happen. So as long as he is away from them, if he's with the pride, if he's by himself, he's my favorite lion. When he's with the cubs, he's pushing the boundaries a bit for me. But it's always hard to say. Look at our females. The females of the Birmingham Pride, Marshall, are they are phenomenal. I mean, that old one, she's like 14, 15, maybe 16, I can't remember, years old. And she is big, she is strong, she is healthy, she's beautiful. She's also, could easily be anyone's favorite lion, Marshall. It's hard to choose. It is very hard to choose. So if this young male had to heal and climb up a tree, hands down my favorite lion, if he ever did that. It's unlikely, but wishful thinking. But okay, so while we go look for my favorite lion, we're going to send you across to Taylor, who's trying to think if she has a favorite elephant.
No, I don't, but he could be. First things first, I would like to apologize. Juma has gone home. Lauren and James, unfortunately, have been experiencing some technical difficulties on their side, but our technical geniuses are working very, very hard at trying to fix it. So we do apologize for the last sort of couple of days, but they will be back, so never fear. The rest of us are here. Now, we've got an interesting sighting up ahead. I didn't mean to sound like Dr. Zeus, sorry. It is a young elephant bull. Now, we've seen him before, and I know a couple of you are quite concerned about this individual. So like I said, he's a young individual, he's a teenager. If you look at his right leg, you can see how his
a lovely little group of meerkats that we're going to try get. Are you happy there, Genre? Okay, so these ones, I'm going to jump off so there's no rocking of the vehicle. These ones are not habituated at all. It's not a known group. But look at the size of that group. Oh my word. Okay, I'm going to... GCM. I'm counting like 13 or 14 there. I don't know how many, but there's a whole stack there. Gee whiz. And there's sub-adults, little ones. There's big adults there. And what a magnificent burrow location. What do you think of that backlight, Andre? Getting there, eh? Sheesh, this is a beautiful spot for them. Very, very open. Easily protected or against potential predators, or at least it's very open so you can see the approach of predators relatively easily. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier, I guess. And what I'm very, very interested in is seeing this group size compared to the habituated groups. Well, let me not say that. Let's say the colonies that we see regularly closer towards the mountains seem to be a lot smaller than this, certainly. Again, this is a sample size of 1, so it actually means nothing, because every other group out here might be 5 individuals. But certainly just seeing a group like this is pretty cool. And that may be related to good foraging. It could just be related to habitat. So, well, in such an open environment, predators are going to battle to actually catch them. So your group size can get larger and larger and larger. And obviously, the larger it is, the more eyes there are to look out for danger. So it becomes easier for them. But there's also that cut-off point in terms of foraging, optimal foraging, and what the environment can actually sustain that group. So if you get too many and not enough food, there's a problem. Kirill has just asked a fun question there. Are meerkats last in and first out? Definitely not. There's a lot of other animals that'll be out before meerkats are and in before they are. So, yeah. I reckon that's their main burrow system. They could move at this time of day, although it's extremely unlikely. I would be very surprised if that group actually moved off to another burrow now. Normally when you start seeing them sitting around a burrow like that at this time of day, whatever time it is, it's 10 past 5 here in South Africa. By now they're going to be settling down, and you can actually see they're doing a lot of grooming in it. So I doubt whether this group will be relocating to another burrow, but it's not impossible. I'm watching that one out on the far left. That one on the far left is on sentry duty. So even though they are right at the burrow, they still want to maintain that constant vigilance to make sure that there's no nasty surprises waiting for them. Yeah, so I think what we're going to do, we're going to turn around, Joe, head back. That Cape Fox, just out of interest, moved a little bit further into that thicket that he was lying at, so we lost visual there. But we're actually going to turn around and head a little bit further west now.
Sorry about my sudden disappearance, but we're back. Now, I don't know how much you heard of the tail of this elephant, but we were just talking about his leg, his right hind leg, and how it is significantly shorter than the rest of his legs on his body. Now, I'm not a vet or anything like that, but I can't see any damage on the outside. There's no open wounds, there's no old scarring, there's nothing to suggest, that there's no broken bone that's piercing through his skin. I don't know if there's any vets that are maybe watching that could give us some suggestions as what has happened here. I don't know. I know sometimes when muscles are torn, appendages tend to shift a little bit, but it looks like he's been like this for a very long time. His leg is a lot skinnier than the other leg, but it doesn't seem to bother him too much. He still puts weight on it. He puts all the weight on. It's just obviously, I don't know exactly how much shorter, but it looks like between 10 and 20 centimeters shorter than the other leg. So he doesn't seem bothered by it at all. Like I was saying, again, I'm not sure how much you caught of it, but we have had a sighting with him, and he was play fighting with the other elephants. They were pushing one another around, and he was quite happy to get involved, and he held his own. So I know it's a little bit sad to see him like that, but he rests his leg, he moves at his own pace. He is a bull, so it's not like he depends on being with a herd. If it was a female elephant, that would be quite taxing, I think, on her emotionally, because they thrive in environments and live in a family group, whereas the males only stay in these family groups for a certain amount of time before they move off and become nomadic and wander around. So I don't think it's too much of a bother to him. Even his temporal glands, they weren't secreting. He doesn't seem to be stressed. He actually is very relaxed. He's not bothered by the cars either. So, sometimes these strange things happen, and animals are just born with a disability. But out here, it really is the survival of the fittest, and you either learn to live with your disability or you don't make it. And he is just carrying on, if that's what it is. But again, I'm not a vet. I'm just surmising. I have absolutely no idea what's happened. But it's quite interesting, because we see him fairly often. He comes around to the eco-training camp. He drinks there. And now he's, moving in the same circuit as the other elephants and heading a little bit further north. We actually might have a break in a few days of elephants. Maybe they're all going to do a big loop around and go into Tijani and spend a few days there. I hope not, though, because I quite enjoy spending every single day with these amazing animals. But because he is at a slight disadvantage, I'm making sure that I keep my distance. I don't want to impose on his space at all. I mean, we never want to do that with any of the animals, but I don't want to pressure him, especially if he has got something wrong with him. That's also when animals can feel a little bit more on the protective side and maybe act a bit more aggressively off the front than they normally would. Will, definitely. I think that having an injury like this could make him more vulnerable to predators, but at his size, he's still at an advantage. The prides of lions here don't seem to hunt elephants. There are very specific prides of lions throughout Africa that have learned how to kill elephants, and it's normally really big prides. The prides of lions here, you very rarely see 20 lions together. It's not unheard of, but it's definitely not as common as you sort of see in East Africa, for just an example. So I think that he'll be okay. And if he had this when he was younger, then yes, definitely. But he would have had the other elephants in the herd to protect him, and until he got to a height, and a size where he could quite easily defend himself. I'm sure hyenas and things, maybe they pester him because hyenas are very cheeky. But again, they're not going to be able to bring down an animal of this size. So being an elephant definitely has its benefits when you are that big. And we often talk about how size does matter in the bush. And lions are supposedly the king of the jungle. They really aren't. When it comes down to wearing that crown, I firmly and pretty confidently say that it is the elephants that are the real kings of the savannah. There's not too many animals that will pester them when they get to this size. But he's just slowly moving off now into the thicket, so we will let him just carry on. Tiamat, honestly, I don't think that this male is really going to stand much of a chance in terms of sowing his seed. They're going to be, well, at the moment, he's too young. There's other bigger bulls in the area. Firstly, they are going to suppress him coming into mast and maybe suppress the urge to mate, also bully him around a bit. But the females are going to show no interest in wanting to mate with a young elephant bull. They also want the best possible genetics. So they tend to favor older bulls in their sort of prime. And even when he does get bigger, because he's still growing, of course, he's a youngster. Imagine, sure, being in a fight against another elephant that weighs 5.5, 6 tons, that has got 4 strong legs. I don't think that he's going to be able to win a fight like that. So maybe he will, maybe he won't. I suppose only time will tell. It'll be interesting to follow this fella's history and just see. Like I said, this is about the 4th time that I've seen him now. He's never shown an inch of aggression, which, like I said, you'd normally see with an animal that's maybe recently injured. There's no snares, there's no wiring, there's no nothing around him. His leg is completely encased in its skin. I have seen a giraffe break its leg before, and then the bone actually healed. It didn't break and pierce through the skin, and that often ends in them dying of an infection. And anyways, this giraffe's leg healed in a bizarre way, and it carried on. Again, it just couldn't keep up with the herd, though, but he was fine. He lost a little bit of condition, but once the bones sort of had fused together in a compromising position, he carried on. I don't think I'm going to follow him and push him along any further, though. I'm going to go back. I think we'll let him do his thing. I'm just in 2 minds as to what to do. If I go back that way towards Leopard Dam to see if those lions that were contact calling went to have a drink, or if we go back around, I think we must just carry on the way we wanted to go. Okay, right, next time you see us, we'll be facing a Leopard Dam, and hopefully we'll have lions having a drink.
Just got a little black-backed jackal that's just moving along this dune crest to right. We're just going to move forward a fraction and just see if we can still keep a view of him. It's just starting out his day, as ours is kind of like winding down. His day's only started now. He's gone over the, I think he's gone over the crest here. Chandra, you can't see him, eh? Okay, I'm just going to stand up over here. Okay, we're going to try and go forward over here. We've got a giraffe out there somewhere. But wow, this is a magnificent area we're in. Very, very different to a lot of the other habitats that we've been to. It's very, very dense bush, dense thickets, these large, big open valleys. So we've crossed over the past 2 hours, we've crossed over a multitude of dune fields. There's about 13 or 14 rows of dunes, and then we get to these massive open flatlands. And it's always exciting driving in these different areas because you never know what you're going to come across. Just this light is golden now. It is sublime. Big giraffe. Oh wow, that's beautiful. Any guesses? Is that a cow or a bull? I don't know if anyone wants to try take a guess and tell me why you think that. Almost like give the game away. I think there's a water hole up ahead of you. I think it's probably just come from drinking water now. That light on it is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, World Giraffe Day today. Well, there we go. How opportune was that? How Well timed was that. Thank you, Giraffe. Giraffe, actually, I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but giraffe numbers are plummeting, eh? Well, plummeting is maybe not the right word, but there's been a huge decrease in giraffe numbers across their range in Africa. And yeah, primarily due to habitat loss. And I mean, there's a couple of other factors as well, but it's not. But there's a lot of information on the internet if you want to look it up. What a setting, and how peaceful is that? Next, I just said it's a bull because there's no hair on the horns. Okay, I think we have the unfair advantage here. I'm sitting here with a pair of binoculars, so perhaps at that distance it's not that apparent, but this giraffe actually has hair right onto the very, very tips of the horns, or those ossicones. So this will be a female. This is a female giraffe. But thanks for trying that. Always good to get some interaction. What an amazing setting, eh? So Laurel has asked, is this giraffe pregnant? And I would go with a yes on that. It would be unusual if for most of these herbivores out here, once they've had a calf, they'll come into estrus again within a couple of weeks, and then they'll conceive. So even when you see a giraffe walking around with a calf, I'm not talking about a very small calf, but a largish calf, there's a very, very, very strong likelihood that she's already pregnant again. And that goes for most of your antelope species. I'm just scanning this area, seeing if there's anything obvious that jumps out at us, figuratively, not literally, hopefully. What a day, eh? What a day. And I'm just so glad that all of you are able to join us as always. I mean, this is just a real privilege having you along. Best to just ask, is a estrus cycle in an animal the same as a menstrual cycle in a human? And yes, it is. It just varies. Some are very, very seasonal. If you look at, as an example, like wild dogs, they'll normally come into estrus once a year. And there's a couple other species like it as well. But with the majority of your herbivores, that can be a lot longer, in fact. If you look at elephants, that can be, every couple of years. If you look at, and in a nutshell, if you look at the smaller the animal, so if you take those meerkats that we've been viewing, okay, the gestation there, as an example, is 11 weeks, okay. Chatting with our meerkat habituator, she said she's seen a group of meerkats have 3 or 4 different sets of litters in a year. So the way the cycle works in these animals is the principle is the same as in humans with the menstrual cycle, but the timing can be very, very, very different depending on the species and the size. Good question. The other interesting thing that we're seeing here is, you may notice there's no other giraffe around, and I'm sitting scanning with binoculars, but I'm not seeing a single other giraffe. I mentioned this, she does look pregnant to me. I'm not seeing it super well from my angle here, but I'm just going on the body size and that, the belly and that. But there's an animal, let's say, potentially pregnant, but I'm not seeing a single other giraffe. And a number of the other giraffe sightings that you've joined us with over the past couple of weeks, there's been 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 giraffe around. And that just highlights the fact that these animals don't necessarily need to be in tight-knit groups. And very often those big aggregations of giraffe, they can be together in 1 week, and the following week they've kind of all split up again. Chloe Zoe, do monogamous animals have fewer estrus cycles? Shush, that's a good question, and I would have to check that up to make sure that I get my facts right on that. I don't think it would have anything to do with being monogamous or otherwise. I don't have an answer for that question offhand, and I'll have to check that up. That's a very, very good question, but I don't think it is going to have anything to do with whether they're monogamous or not. Interestingly, some of the, taking the meerkats as an example as well, the dominant female actually tries to suppress the others from breeding in the group. Okay, sorry, I apologize, I didn't get the name there, but the question is, how many months pregnant do I think this giraffe is? I'm going to go out on an absolute limb over here and say 7 or 8 months, but, I'd really have to get a lot closer to this animal. I'm looking at it through binoculars at long distance there with a bit of bush in the way. And the fun thing there is, giraffe, you can see kind of when they're pregnant, because the belly does swell, they get quite a bit larger, but not that much. And the smaller the animal, and again coming back to the well-known example that we've been following for the past couple of days, the meerkats, some of you may have seen the size of that meerkat female. She was like a barrel, and you couldn't mistake, gong, okay, she's going to drop. On these larger animals, if you look at things like giraffe, hippo, elephant, places that have rhino, things like that, it can often be a lot trickier to, for the layperson to say, okay, yeah, that animal is X amount of months along in the term. But with meerkats, the smaller things, and I think that just relates purely to that body size. The smaller the animal, the easier it is to see. Yes, now that giraffe is all but disappeared. And the other thing with estrus cycles, and that is, and that's the thing, is that it can be very, very staggered in terms of if a female loses its youngsters, she can actually go into estrus within a couple of weeks after that, very, very soon after losing young, and losing it could be predation or whatever that reason is. So there are mechanisms that can kick in there. So the estrus thing is very, very, very different depending on the species that you're dealing with, depending on the size of the species. But that question earlier about being monogamous or not, that's a very interesting one. I'll try to find out, see if I can get any data on that. Yes, I think my hearing is giving up on me. I get the question, but I'm backing with the names. It sounded like Casper has asked, so I'm just going to say it straight out there, has asked, and this is a great question as well, are there differences in the gestation period between animals that are altrical or otherwise? In other words, if an animal is born blind, naked, helpless, and they cannot fend for themselves, they are super reliant on the parents, or if they are up and going, ready to go within a couple of hours of birth. If you take, I'm just going to again use an example that we've seen, take springbuck, for instance, out here, within hours after birth, those animals are ready to get up and go. Animals that are altrical, in other words, they are heavily dependent on the parents, and that can be for weeks to months to sometimes years after birth. They tend to have longer gestation periods. Where it gets interesting for me, and this again we can try to find out there, is if you look at things that are super similar. Like, in other words, you're not taking like YDW, like an elephant calf and a springbuck. If you're taking things that are similar, like hares and rabbits, so the leverets, the baby rabbits, is a cool word. They are completely helpless, naked. They spend their lives down warrens, or we've got a beautiful rabbit species here called the Smith's Red Rock Rabbit. They live up in the mountains, and I've seen one youngster, a dead one once, but otherwise you don't see those things. They hide away, but for weeks after birth, they're completely dependent on the parents. Hares, that we got two. We got a Cape Hare and a scrub head here. Those are very, very similar in size and shape. So you can kind of relate them and say, well, okay, there's a hare and there's a rabbitouche. The one is ready to get up and go. The other one is completely helpless. And I can't think offhand what the gestation period on those two different genera are, but I can find out. That would be very, very interesting, because there's two very similar organisms, but two completely different life strategies straight after birth. So we can find that out. A very, very good question. And often these things are related to early survival strategies. If you are born blind and helpless, and you can't get up and go, well, then you're going to need shelter. But then the advantage is you've got your parents looking after you. If you're a youngster that gets born and you're kind of ready to get up and go soon after birth, the risk that you run is you're probably going to be fending for yourself a lot earlier. That learning period from the parents, that protection period from the parents is markedly shorter, which means you're going to be pretty much out in the real world a lot sooner than otherwise. Yes, it's beautiful out here. Wow. Julia's just asked, and I got that name right, do any animals have problems with fertility out here? The short answer there is no. I mean, there are, in the wild, there are very, very few cases where you would ever have fertility problems as such. The challenge, more so than the actual fertility, is as there's more and more pressure on species these days and on conservation areas, you can get places that get stuck with fewer and fewer and fewer individuals of particular species. And then that can translate into things like potential inbreeding, fertility problems, that kind of thing. But on these vast open areas, or vast areas like this, and areas like Djuma, Ngala, Pinda, these areas where you've got massive numbers of animals of different species, the chance of having fertility problems per se would be, I would imagine, it would be extremely, extremely small. But again, if there are any geneticists out there, feel free, very welcome to correct me. There's no issues with that. Okay, there's another name I can hear. Butterfly. Butterfly has just asked, what is a baby giraffe called? Have we got any answers? I'm going to take a wild guess. Okay, I'll give you the name. A baby giraffe is a calf. It's a giraffe calf. Now we're just sitting here enjoying the scenery. I hope you're all enjoying it with us. We're going to amble along here and just enjoy the sunset, and we will see what we can find.
Okay, so what we are doing is, just a couple minutes ago, we had a leopard rasping. Well, we never actually saw it. They heard it. Rowan heard it. So now we think it's down along this road somewhere. So we're looking. But now you can see there's a whole lot of Impala off to our right that are very relaxed. So they obviously have not seen the leopard, which would suggest that he hasn't come this far yet. So we are going to head back and look. Some of them are looking in this direction. Now remember, their sense of hearing, their sense of smell is much, much better than ours. So it could be they can hear him walking, or they can smell him before we can. So we want to have a look. This is the perfect time. As you can see, very dark. You'll notice the screen is in sort of black and white, and that's because we are in night vision, in IR, and that's how dark it is here. So perfect time for the leopards to be out, to be patrolling. If he is rasping, that means he's patrolling his territory. So I'm hoping generally when they do that, they do walk along the road, because the road is a great territorial sort of boundary, territorial marker. A lot of animals walk on it, so your scent will cover a large area. So I'm hoping that as we turn a corner, he's going to be in the road. Now this sort of area where we are on and beyond Ngala, it will most likely be the Tambori Tom, which is that big male that we see, and the father of the Mokochi male, the father of the Shitsalale youngsters. So pretty impressive leopard, one that we haven't seen in a while, so it'll be very exciting if we can find him. Myself and OD were just saying we haven't seen him. I'm hoping, guys, cross your fingers, he's going to pop out. And, you know, as we all know, it is Father's Day. He is a father. So maybe he will delight us on this day. What we might do is just down here, we could smell like where he left some scat, where he went to the toilet. So we might just turn off and listen to see if we can hear him rasping again, and then pinpoint exactly. Odie's just going to wipe the lens quickly. So we got a question from a new viewer, Rebecca. Now Rebecca wants to know, what do leopards eat? So Rebecca, a male leopard like this would go for things like impalas or bushbucks or inyalas, all sort of antelopes. Primarily antelopes is what they would go for. They will also go for baboons, or if they're desperate, even some of the smaller things. Scrub hares, baby leopards will go for mongoose. So it just depends. But on average, impalas is their main food source, Rebecca. Impalas are the right size. It's enough food for the leopard. He can probably eat an impala over about 2 nights, 3 days. He can eat an impala. So it's a well worth the effort meal, which is very important. And it's light enough for a male leopard to take up a tree like this one in front of us. The leopard, it's not a great tree, but the leopard can take the food up a tree like that. So that's the sort of things he would be going for. It would be awesome if he had a carcass, because then we would know exactly where he is. And I am looking in the trees, just in case. But so far, no luck. No, I mean, it's hard finding these animals in the day. It's harder at night. That's exciting. So what we're going to do, we're going to carry on looking for this guy, see if we can find him. But while we do that, we're going to send you over to Swalu to have a look at the sunset on the shortest day of the year.
Another tough day in Africa passes. We have just watched with you, or busy watching with you, the most amazing sunset, as was last night's sunset and the one before that, and the 1,000 before that. So the shortest day, longest night, eh? The winter solstice. Also beautiful. You got these villies, eh, Chandra? Yeah, so we just got this beautiful little wildebeest, blue wildebeest. kicking up some dust. Some of them are actually rolling now. I don't know if you can even see those across to the right there. Watch, that one might go down again, pawing the ground. That'll be one of the bulls. Yes, that is. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. My goodness, this is stunning. Let me just get, I don't think that's a bull, I think it's a cow. Let me get my binoculars out here. Or somewhere. There you go. I think that's actually, I think these are all cows. These are all cows and calves. Yeah. This light in the dust is spectacular. So that dust bathing can help with parasite loads, or help reduce parasite loads. You also get dust bathing even in the very hottest times of the day, and that can actually help with reducing an animal's body temperature, or at least the surface temperature of the animal. But normally if they're doing that, you'll actually see them, and meerkats do it frequently, and ground squirrels do it frequently. You'll see them in the hottest time of day, they'll go into a little shady patch, and then they'll actually scrape the sand. Those of you who have dogs at home, you may have even seen dogs do that on hot days. They'll actually go into a garden bed or something and scrape the sand away, and then lie down in this little hollow. And that's very often if they, or certainly in our part of the world, that's if they're getting very hot, they do that. And by scraping that top layer of hot sand away, they get to that cooler layer underneath. But we got a lot of biting flies out here called Hippo flies, horse flies. They're not that painful, but you get these big welts from them. And this nice coating of dust can actually help prevent biting flies. Well, Singer has just asked a question on if a mother wildebeest gets killed or dies for whatever purpose or reason, will the rest of the herd look out for that animal? I've actually seen different wildebeest calves, or calves from different females, suckling on one adult female. I don't know what the background was. It was in a herd, but there was a breeding herd of wildebeest. One had finished suckling, another calf walked up and suckled there. I don't know if something had happened to that mother, and this one was mutually suckling on the other one, but I would imagine if that calf was a youngster, that can happen. But then you also get these incredible cases of antagonism. If a calf unknown to an animal tries to suckle on another one, that they'll actually get very aggressive and sometimes even kill it in extreme cases. And again, things like that I would imagine would be related to habitat quality. Monarch has just asked, what are they eating or licking? Very, very observant there. Monarch, good one. That is called a mineral lick. A mineral lick, and it's a supplementary lick block that we actually put out close to water points in these areas. The Kalahari is very well known for being deficient in certain minerals, and sodium is one of those. So that is a salt lick that they're licking there. Yeah, that we're looking at, they're licking, not the other way around. And so that just helps supplement their salt intake, because these animals don't migrate out of these areas now. Whereas historically there probably would have been huge migrations in these, kind of like the migrations in East Africa following the rains. But now that these animals are unable to do that kind of thing, then you've got to take the necessary steps to say, well, okay, are they able to get all the necessary nutrients, minerals, and if not, how can you look at supplementing that? And that's normally with mineral licks. Just this dust is fantastic. Oh, you happy, Jandre? Jandre's like smiling. This is beautiful. That dust being kicked up and the silhouettes. Just for those of you who enjoy photography, and I'm not a great photographer, but that's quite a tricky thing. Okay, here's a nice question. Dylan, I even got that name right. Can you imagine that? Has just asked, do wildebeest travel in herds? The females tend to move in herds like this group, but the bulls are very, very, very territorial, and they have what they call a territorial patch. It's normally this little hollow in the ground that they'll defecate in, they'll stand around, they'll scent mark. They've got these preorbital glands on the face that they'll actually rub up on trees. And so they defend these territories very aggressively against other wildebeest bulls in the breeding season. It's the females that go in the herds, and they'll move through a number of different male territories. And as they're going into a certain male's territory, he will actually try kind of keep that herd, that breeding herd, within his area as long as possible to have the opportunity of mating with those females. So the answer in a nutshell there, Dylan, is yes and no. We're just going to carry on sitting here a little bit longer and just enjoying this absolutely magical setting.
Welcome back to Pinde, everyone. It has been a fairly quiet afternoon for us this side. Besides the black rhino, that we had earlier, we haven't seen too much else. But I believe you were all discussing the wildebeest and whether they would adopt the calf of another female. It's a very interesting topic, that. And the reason why it's interesting is I've experienced it myself with a few different species. When I say myself, it's not like another species adopted me. That sounded wrong. But in the 7 years I've been a guide, I've seen it in elephants. I've seen a female elephant with two different calves, and at one stage we thought that maybe the calves were twins. But we did notice quite a large size difference between the calves. There was a very famous pride of lions in the Sabi Sands known as the Charleston Pride, who used to have their territory over the reserve I worked at in Kirkman's Camp. And the lioness of the Charleston Pride adopted her sister's cubs when her sister was killed by another pride of lions. It's going to turn the lights off to not blind these impala. And she successfully raised those males, which was an incredible story. I don't think she suckled them, but they were about 3 or 4 months when their mother died. And then a really strange story once with leopards. A female leopard and her cub came across another female leopard and her cub. The two females was mother and daughter, and there was a little bit of an altercation around a kill. And the one cub, for some reason, ended up following the wrong mother. So the one cub followed its grandmother, and I suppose the young sister ended up following her sister. And those cubs were raised for about 6 months with a different mother to what they were born to. That male is still alive in the Sabi Sands, and I think it's a absolutely fascinating story. And I can't see why that maternal instinct wouldn't kick in with different species of animals raising the same species of other adults. I have read once a very interesting story, meerkats being the talk of the town at Swalu. A female meerkat who didn't even have her own pup, at least I think it's a meerkat's called a pup. She didn't have her own pup, and she adopted a youngster, and she actually started to lactate herself. So she wasn't pregnant, but that maternal instinct kicked in, and she began to lactate, and that youngster then suckled off her, which is absolutely incredible. Anyway, at the moment we're out in the area where we've got quite a few mountains off to my left, and it's very thick over here, so I am hoping that we find a leopard in the area. There's a particular female leopard who's very relaxed that walks through this area. She enjoys the mountains on the left here. There's quite a few water holes around here, and we often see her walking on this road while she marks her territory. And because we've had quite a bit of rain recently, something I've noticed in the years I've been a guide is that leopards will often make kills during the rain, and because they can hoist their carcass into the tree, they feed on it for about 2 days or so, depending obviously on the size of the kill. And thus we had rain 2 days ago, so I'm hoping that the female in this area maybe was on a kill. She has finished feeding, and often after it has rained, the rain washes the scent marks away from all the predators, and it is often a time where you'll then find lions and leopards out on the move, walking the roads, busy marking their territory. So it's about 2 days after it rained, so I am hoping that she is out and about in this area marking her territory. There is also 1 or 2 males who we do see in this particular area, and actually on this road 2 or 3 days ago someone briefly saw 2 males interacting with each other. So this must be sort of an area where those 2 males' territories overlap, and they happen to come across each other, which is always very interesting to watch. Now, the male lions that we saw this morning, we only saw the 1 male, and he was in a bit of a different direction to where we are here, a different area. But I did mention that I think that they were also out and marking their territory. So I'm hoping that he went south and his brother went north, and this is north from that area. And we're sort of in the sort of northern parts of their territory, so he could also be out marking his territory. The sun has dropped, as you can see, and the temperature is getting cooler. So it is the ideal time for those animals to be moving around. I do also know that at Ngala they heard a leopard rasping. So while I'm driving around, I'm listening out for leopards rasping or soaring, what some people call it, lions roaring. But while I keep a lookout for those animals and an ear out, we're going to head over to Twalu.
Just watching the interactions of this herd a bit, where they moved down, they drank some water, then they came back to the mineral lick. But there's obviously a bit of a hierarchy there, I reckon, amongst them, because you get like certain individuals that will go, and then the others will like loiter around behind, and they'll wait for those others to move off, and then they'll go. And at one stage there was actually a group of them around one of the mineral licks, and then one individual came walking in, and they all just scattered. She put her head down, and the others like scattered off straight away. So I think there's definitely a hierarchy even within these herd groups, and you don't tend to think of that as you know, you think of like, oh, matriarchs, alphas go, well, elephants is like one of the big things that comes to mind. But a lot of these species actually have some kind of hierarchy within them. You know, it's often the really big charismatic species, or so perceived charismatic species, should I rather say, that get the most attention. But I mean, all these things are charismatic. And I'm just loving this play between they're going and then they come back, then they go, and look at that, eh? So one goes there, the other one comes in and chases it. But I hope any of you that enjoy photography are really enjoying this, because this is super, super, super special to see these animals with this dust. But as always, it's been such a pleasure having you join Jandre and myself today. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of all the other guides. It's not just about me and Jandre and Swalu. This is about all of us, and including all of you at home or wherever you are watching it with us. It's just always such a privilege being able to share these things with you. And yeah, please join us again tomorrow for another absolutely incredible day out in the Kalahari.